Chapter 360. The piercingly cold sword astral chi seemed to emit the sound of gold and jade in an instant. The sharp sword astral chi was released along with the ancient divine beast aura within her body at this moment. The powerful ancient divine beast aura accompanied by her innate domineering aura was released, and the aura in the air suddenly changed. It even suppressed the peak golden core stage aura released by the shriveled old man's laughter. It was this powerful and frightening aura that caused the ghost claw to involuntarily shrink back in shock. This is the ancient divine pressure and king's domineering aura. When the four golden core cultivators felt the terrifying pressure, their hearts trembled and they looked at the small figure in disbelief. Ancient divine pressure. King's domineering aura. Where did this little girl come from? Ancient divine pressure usually came from ancient divine beasts. They shared the same life, and divine pressure. This little girl should have an ancient mythical beast. As for King's domineering aura, it was simply the king's aura that only appeared in legends. It was an innate king's aura that came from the blood and bones. It could not be cultivated. Looking at the entire continent, only those few experts standing at the top of the pyramid had this kind of chi. They never thought that they would actually encounter one in the Nine Valleys forest. Moreover, it was a combination of ancient divine pressure and King's domineering aura. In an instant, the air seemed to be filled with countless ghost howls. These were the howls of ghosts that could not withstand the ancient divine pressure and King's domineering aura. They were mournful and sharp, causing pain to one's eardrums. Retreat. You just need to protect yourself, Fengjiu coldly instructed. Her figure flashed in an instant, holding the Qingfeng sword as she faced the blood-robed female ghost that was pouncing towards her. Her speed was extremely fast, like a flash of lightning. The few Jindan stage cultivators could not catch her movements. They only knew that the dazzling light of the azure-edged sword contained a sharp aura, and it slashed down at the blood-robed female ghost with a speed that was too fast for their ears. The ferocious aura and fast speed caused the blood-robed female ghost with Foundation establishment strength to not even have the chance to dodge. She let out a mournful scream as her body was split into two. She instantly turned into a dark green flame that devoured the blood-robed female ghost. It seemed to merge into the surrounding ghost fire and disappeared without a trace. You dare to kill my ghost cultivator. I want you dead. 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 The shriveled old man's eyes widened. His angry voice was accompanied by a powerful aura. The word dead seemed to be magnified as it was condensed by the spiritual chi in his body, pressing towards her. Because he was shocked by the ancient pressure and the domineering aura of a ruler on her body, he was stunned for a moment. But he didn't expect that in this short moment of distraction, he would watch helplessly as the ghost cultivator under him, who had a cultivation equivalent to the Foundation establishment stage, was split into two by the little girl's sword and turned into ashes. Under the old man's powerful aura, Luoyu, who only had the strength of a great martial master, could not withstand the pressure and killing intent. He felt the blood and chi in his body surge like a flood that broke through a dam. It rushed towards his heart and throat. He wanted to suppress it, but he could not suppress it and spat out a mouthful of blood. Pooh! Chapter 361. Whoosh! Bang, bang, bang. Once the sharp sword chi was released, it shattered the three death characters. The moment the death characters were shattered, the airflow immediately scattered to the ground. Almost at the same time, she injected her spiritual chi into the Qingfeng sword and instantly released a sword chi towards the skinny old man who was sitting cross-legged. Go! With a cold shout, she pulled Luoyu, whose face was pale and whose blood was boiling, towards the boundary that was only 5 or 6 meters away. Her cold eyes stared at the blood-red boundary that was visible to the naked eye, and she didn't stop at all as she rushed forward. The 4 golden core cultivators who were sitting on the ground and unable to get up were already stunned by her fighting strength. At this moment, they saw her continuously rushing towards the barrier as if she was completely confident that she could break the barrier. They wanted to remind her that the barrier was set up by an old monster at the peak of the Golden Core stage and was protected by fresh blood. With her strength, it would be difficult for her to break it. It would be better for her to quickly save them and kill the old monster with everyone's strength. However, who would have thought that a dense and pure spiritual energy would rapidly surge out from her hand that was holding the azure-edged sword? As the spiritual energy surged out, a scarlet-red flame also jumped onto the azure-edged sword in her hand with a whoosh. It was like a fire dragon that coiled around the blade of the sword. "Break for me." She raised her hand and coldly shouted. The Qingfeng sword in her hand suddenly shot out a powerful sword chi accompanied by raging flames towards the barrier. Seeing this scene, the 4 Golden Core cultivators widened their eyes and sucked in a breath of cold air in disbelief. After she attacked with her sword, the blood that surged at the barrier was instantly burned by the flames and the barrier let out a cracking sound. Crack! When the sound came out, the barrier that was surging with a powerful spiritual chi, under the illumination of the flames, actually cracked open at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if the surface of ice had been hit and the crack spread out until a loud bang was heard. The spiritual chi that condensed the barrier suddenly scattered. It actually broke. The 4 cultivators stared blankly, and they'd already forgotten where they were and the danger they were in. Instead, they were shocked by the unbelievable scene before their eyes, and they were unable to return to their senses for a long time. It seemed that the skinny old man couldn't leave the place he was sitting. When he saw the barrier break, the smell of blood and the life force he had collected spread out, and when he saw his efforts being destroyed by this little girl who came out of nowhere, his eyes shot out a bloody light. His anger soared to the sky, and his killing intent was overwhelming. Ah! The deafening roar was filled with thick resentment and murderous intent. The powerful pressure contained in the roar formed ripple-like lines that rippled outwards in circles, causing the ground to shake violently. There was a loud rumble, as if the mountain mud had been shaken off. The loud rumble was extremely clear in the night. "You've ruined my efforts. Cut off my life. I want you to die a horrible death." The skinny old man sat cross-legged and roared at the sky. His hands quickly formed a strange seal, and his sinister voice mixed with a bloodthirsty murderous aura spread in the night. "Blood Soul Array. Activate." Fingzhou, who was escaping from the barrier with Luo Yu, suddenly felt a huge sense of danger. She quickly looked back and her pupils suddenly shrank. She immediately injected spiritual chi into her hands and pushed Luo Yu forward, doing her best to send him 100 meters away. Chapter 362. Luo Yu only felt his entire body fly out uncontrollably, as if there was a force pushing him from behind. After he was pushed out nearly 100 meters, the pressure that made it difficult for him to even breathe also dissipated, and the strength in his body seemed to have returned. "Master!" He looked back and cried out involuntarily. He saw that a complex blood-red array had appeared where she was, and the fine lines seeped out from the soil, as if they were formed by fresh blood flowing through the array. The large blood array emitted a dense blood-red light and an aura of death, causing his heart to involuntarily tremble when he saw it. He had been a phoenix guard for so long, but this was the first time he had seen such a terrifying and shocking scene. He should have left, but seeing that his master was still there, he wanted to run back without thinking, but he heard his master's sharp voice. "Go to the place I told you to wait for me. Carry out my orders." Fengzhou shouted sternly, her voice concise, but with an unquestionable sharpness and pressure, forcing him to stop in his tracks. Master Datta's eyes were blood-red, filled with struggle and pain, and his heart was even more uncomfortable. If it wasn't for him, his master wouldn't have fallen into such a dangerous situation. If it wasn't for him, his master wouldn't have been unable to escape. If it wasn't for him, reason told him to listen to his master's orders and leave quickly, because his strength was too weak, and he couldn't withstand the pressure of a golden core old monster. If he stayed, not only would he not be able to help his master, he would also be a burden to her. But his feet were so heavy that he couldn't move. That was his master, his master who had fallen into danger to save him. How could he leave like this? Go quickly. Fengjiu shouted sternly, but she didn't have time to care about him. She turned around and looked at the strange blood array under her feet, and saw that the complex lines in the array were flowing with blood. She didn't know where the blood came from, but the aura of death was too strong, and it really made her hair stand on end. Under Fengjiu's stern shout, Luoyu gritted his teeth, turned around, and quickly left. Little fire, I can't move from where I'm standing. Do you know how to break this array? She used her divine sense to ask Little Fire Phoenix in the space, and her gaze fell on the skinny old man who sat cross-legged in the middle without moving. That old monster hasn't moved from where he's sitting. Could it be that he's sitting there and can't move? This blood soul array is an evil array, and it's formed by condensing human blood. The place where the old monster is sitting should be where the aura of blood is the strongest. And he should be to change the heaven and change. If you didn't ruin his plan, no one to survive here at midnight. Little Fire Phoenix's tender voice was solemn and dignified. After a slight pause, it said, "Be careful, don't step on the bloodlines in the array, and you won't be trapped. However, this old monster is determined to kill you. I think the best way is to join forces with the 4 Golden Core Adepts and kill him to prevent future troubles." Hearing this, she also felt that this was the only way. Hence, her gaze fell on the 4 Golden Core Adepts. Chapter 363. After all, they had seen her strength. Even if she couldn't defeat them, she would definitely be able to escape. However, they couldn't. If she didn't help them, the 4 of them would probably die here. After all, they had seen her strength. Even if they couldn't defeat her, they would definitely be able to escape. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised an eyebrow and said, "Help you? We are not related. Why would I take this risk? Even if I can't defeat them, it won't be hard for me to escape. But you guys, it's hard to say." Their hearts sank. They didn't think that she would really have this idea. In a moment, the 4 of them looked at each other. One of them stared at Fengjiu and asked, "Then, little friend, what do you want before you help us?" "Hee hee." She laughed softly, revealing a row of white teeth. Her eyes sparkled as she stared at the 4 of them and said, "Looking at your appearances, you must be rogue cultivators? You've seen my emerald-edged sword and know so much about me. If I can't become one of you, why would I take this risk?" Little Fire Phoenix, who was in the space, heard this and rolled his eyes. She was still trying to trick them at a time like this. However, these 4 Golden Core cultivators weren't weak. Some of them had already reached the intermediate stage. If they could be recruited, they would be worth 100. Upon hearing her words, the 4 of them fell silent. The moment she spoke, they immediately understood what she meant. However, even if this little girl was extraordinary, for the 4 of them to lower their heads and respectfully address her as master, they couldn't help but feel a little unwilling in their hearts. After all, cultivators who could cultivate to their level could already dominate a small country like this. However, although this little girl's skills were good, she was still a small cultivator who wasn't even at the foundation establishment stage. But if they didn't agree, no matter how high their level was or how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to escape and would lose their lives here. After thinking about it, the 4 of them looked at each other and asked, "What do you think? We're going to lose our lives. Why would we care about this strand of soul? Yes, even though she's young, she has the aura of a ruler. In the future, she will be extraordinary. Following her won't be a disgrace to us." "I think so too." "Alright, since no one has any objections, let's each offer a soul to her." Once the divine soul appeared, their lives would be in her hands. If she wanted to kill them, she only needed to crush the divine soul, and they would die without even fighting. Therefore, offering up their souls was already a sign of their utmost sincerity. This was also because of what she had said earlier. After knowing so much about her, if they weren't her own people, how could she let them live? Making up their minds, the four of them took advantage of the fact that the shriveled old man was still in the middle of the formation to send a strand of their spirit to Fengzhou. Today, we will offer our spirit to show our sincerity in recognizing you as our master. Master, will this do? Fengzhou stretched out her hand and took the 4 strands of divine soul into her hand. With a clench of her hand, they disappeared into her palm. She curled her lips and revealed a smile. Very good. Inhale the medicine and it will allow you to quickly recover your strength. She took out a bottle of medicine from her space and threw it at them. At the same time, the green sword in her hand attacked them. A sharp sword chi instantly struck in front of them, causing them to shake off the ground, separating them from the blood traces on the ground. Swish! Bang bang! Chapter 364. The power that they had lost seemed to return to their bodies in an instant. Their eyes shined brightly as they clenched their fists and let out a low roar. The spiritual energy in their bodies surged and converged into every vein in their bodies. Ha! With a low bellow, their bodies stretched out in midair. Some of them grabbed at the air with their hands and sucked the air currents in the air into their palms. They then slapped down fiercely at the skinny old man who was sitting cross-legged. Some of them formed hand seals with their fingers, and a stream of air shot out to form a cold air blade that split into 3 and attacked the skinny old man with a fierce momentum. The ferocity of their attacks made Fengzhou sigh with emotion. Golden core cultivators were indeed different. As for the other 2, one waved his hand and the other waved his sleeve. Several hidden weapons shot out toward the skinny old man. The 4 people's attacks formed a circle, not giving him a chance to escape. However, the skinny old man was clearly stronger than the 4 of them. The skinny old man, who had his eyes closed and was forming seals, suddenly opened his bloodthirsty eyes. A bloody light seemed to shoot out from his eyes, and the smell of blood and death wrapped around his body. With a fierce roar, he formed the final seal with both hands and suddenly pushed it upward. Ah! A rich bloody aura spread out from his hands, and a ferocious momentum crashed into the 4 people like a stormy wave, sending them flying. Pooh! The 4 people were injured by the powerful and fierce bloody aura. As their bodies flew out, they spat out blood from their mouths. They heavily fell more than 10 meters away and landed on the edge of the formation. As soon as they came into contact with the blood flowing from the formation, it was as if there were pairs of hands pressing them to the ground. Fortunately, the spiritual chi in their bodies had recovered, and their bodies were no longer as weak as before, unable to stand up. However, they were still injured by the powerful bloody aura, so they couldn't stand up for a while. At this moment, the emaciated old man's vicious and bloodthirsty gaze swept past the 4 people who had collapsed in the formation before landing on Fengzhou, who was standing motionlessly in the middle of the formation. The killing intent in his eyes was so terrifying, and his ferocious face was so terrifying. The ruthlessness of his desire to tear Fengzhou to pieces caused the hearts of the 4 golden core cultivators to involuntarily tighten. Quickly run! The 4 people couldn't help but shout. At this moment, they couldn't help but worry for her. It wasn't because she was holding their lifeblood, but because they were worried for her safety. After all, if she died, their souls that she had taken away would no longer be a threat. Their warning was only because she was outstanding, because they didn't want to see a ruler with the domineering aura of a ruler, who was very likely to rule over a part of the world in the future, be killed before she could rise up and fall. Run! Ha 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 ha! She ruined this old man's plans. Not only will this old man kill her, but I will also make her die without a complete corpse. The voice was bloodthirsty and ruthless. As soon as the voice fell, a murderous aura covered the sky and rushed towards Fengzhou like a rising wave, as if it wanted to drown her in the murderous aura. At the same time, the skinny old man who had been sitting cross-legged flew up at this moment. His hands formed into claws and attacked Fingzhou with a cold and ruthless aura of death. His speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to see his figure. They only felt that the destructive aura of death was so dense that it made it difficult for them to breathe. Chapter 365. At this moment, Fingzhou narrowed her eyes as she watched the old man approach her. She watched as the aura of death enveloped her. The situation was clearly very dangerous, but at this moment, she became increasingly calm. If it was a cultivator who had just entered the golden core stage, she would not have been forced into such a tight corner. However, this old man was already at the peak of the golden core stage and was only a step away from entering the nascent soul stage. In addition, he cultivated an evil technique, so his power was definitely not something an ordinary golden core stage cultivator could compare to. Otherwise, those 4 golden core stage cultivators would not have been trapped here. When she entered the Jiufu forest, she did not expect to meet such a golden core stage cultivator here. She also did not expect that a cultivator from another country would choose to change his fate here. She also did not expect that she would be involved in this massacre in order to save Luo Yu. At this time, if she was even the slightest bit careless, she would lose her life here. Thus, she had no choice but to be careful and give it her all. That's right, she had to give it her all. This crisis was fierce and did not allow her to dodge or retreat. If she wanted to live, she had to give it her all. In that instant, she took out a medicine and consumed it. The spiritual energy aura around her rapidly rose at a speed visible to the naked eye, and a powerful pressure was released from her body. At that moment, the invisible shackles that tightly bound her legs were broken. She jumped up and poured spiritual energy into the Qingfeng sword in her hand. Her aura changed, and with a clear shout, she met the old monster's attack head-on. Azure Dragon goes to sea. At the same time, the sword qi of the Qingfeng sword instantly turned into a huge dragon and charged towards the old man. The powerful sword aura drove the surrounding aura, causing the air pressure in the air to quickly become low and fierce. The wind blades and air currents were like ice-cold curved blades that blew in the air. The fierce killing intent carried with it a powerful ancient pressure that caused people's hearts to turn cold. Roar! A dragon-like roar came from the mouth of the huge azure dragon. As the huge dragon head pounced towards the old man, its sharp claws slashed across. The old man's eyes were filled with shock as his black robe was cut open by the fierce air currents. However, before the dragon tail could touch the old man's body, the blood light in his hand swelled and condensed into a blood dragon that swallowed the azure dragon. 2 streams of air rushed up and entangled in the air. Looking up, one could see 2 giant dragons, one green and one red, formed by spiritual power tearing at each other. Wind blades were stirred up, and murderous auras were overflowing. The 2 dragons were fighting in the air, and Feng Jiu was also fighting with the old monster below. In just a few short moves, the old clothes on her body had been cut by the other party's air blades. Her cultivation was far inferior to him, and if it wasn't for her outstanding speed and martial skill, she would be utterly unable to exchange blows with him. After a few moves, she was gradually at a disadvantage. When she saw this, she gritted her teeth and seized the opportunity to toss out 4 bottles to the 4 golden core cultivators who were dumbstruck. Drink it. As soon as she finished speaking, she was hit in the chest by the old monster because she was distracted by throwing something out. A powerful aura of death rushed towards her, giving her no chance to dodge. She could only take the hit. Chapter 366. The 4 golden core cultivators caught the item she threw out. However, when they looked again, they saw that she was unable to avoid the palm strike and had taken it head-on. Just as they were worried for her, they saw that the palm strike, which was enough to kill her, had only pushed her back 10 meters. The tattered clothes on her body had been torn to shreds, revealing a silvery white color that flashed in their eyes under the night sky. Hiss! It's actually a defensive treasured robe. The four people sucked in a breath. They didn't expect that she would have such a treasure. Furthermore, seeing that she wasn't injured after taking a palm strike from a peak golden core cultivator, it could be seen that the defensive treasured robe was extraordinary. At this time, the four people noticed that after the tattered and unremarkable clothes on her body had been torn to shreds, a woman wearing a silvery white robe was revealed. Her figure was so beautiful that they couldn't take their eyes off her. Although her face was covered in dust and her appearance couldn't be seen clearly, her sparkling eyes were as bright as the stars. From those eyes, there was a sense of self-confidence and a clear aura. Wrapped in the silvery white robe, her perfectly straight figure no longer appeared small and thin. Instead, it was slender and delicate, yet it exuded a noble aura. It seemed that she really wasn't an extraordinary person. Perhaps, she wasn't someone from this small ninth-ranked country. Thinking of this, the four people quickly returned to their senses and recalled that after she drank the contents of the bottle, the spiritual power in her body had surged. Their expression slightly changed and they glanced at the bottle in their hands. Without hesitation, they opened it and drank it. As soon as it entered their mouths, they could tell that it was a medicine. Moreover, it was an extremely pure medicine. When he felt the medicine slide down his throat to his dantian, he felt a strange flow of air surge in his abdomen. Immediately after, the spiritual power in his body rapidly surged and rushed to the meridians in his body. What a powerful medicine! The four people looked at each other in shock. They didn't expect that a small bottle of medicine would have a miraculous effect that was even more powerful than a pill. This kind of thing was extremely rare even in their lives. At that moment, he didn't have time to think too much because he heard a loud rumble in the air. The two huge dragons shattered at the same time and the airflow spread out in the air. The two people below were also fighting. It was obvious that the woman in the silver robe was gradually at a disadvantage because her strength was inferior to her opponent. Seeing this, they quickly gathered their chi and leaped up, surrounding the old monster at the peak of Jean Dan's stage from all sides. At the same time, they shouted to Fingzhou, whose chi was slightly chaotic and in a slightly sorry state, "Master, you retreat first. Let us deal with him." Hearing this, Fingzhou quickly retreated after dodging the attack of the peak old monster. With her strength as a great spirit master, being able to last this long against a peak gold core expert was already her limit. If she continued to fight, not only would her physical strength not be able to keep up, even her spiritual power would be exhausted. She quickly retreated and panted. She took out a bottle of medicine from her space and drank it. Her gaze swept past the four golden core cultivators who were besieging the pinnacle old monster. Her gaze shifted and fell on the center of the formation. Xiaohua, the bloody aura on that old monster's body should be provided by this formation, right? After breaking this blood-soul formation, even if he can fight, his aura will be exhausted, right? She asked with her divine sense and made up her mind to break this strange blood-soul formation first. Chapter 367. Hearing this, Fingzhou's gaze landed on the dancing willow, the wisps floating in mid-air, but not attacking anyone, as if they had no offensive power. However, in this strange blood-soul array, blood and souls were used, so how could the willow, the wisps not have any offensive power? As for what kind of offensive power it would have, then let her give it a try. After making up her mind, she leaped up, avoiding the blood array patterns on the ground, and headed towards the center of the array. Perhaps those people who were sitting dazedly in the array were caught early, as they were only hanging on by a thread of life. Their bodies were no longer filled with the aura of living people, but an aura of death. Some of them were still sitting on the ground, while others had already fallen to the ground. After all, they were fighting in this array, and the strong pressure and air blades were spreading in all directions. These people did not know how to dodge, nor could they withstand the strong pressure, so naturally, they had already lost their chance to live. Her gaze only swept past those people, and her heart was calm. The world was so cruel, and many times, there was no choice. Even if they did not want to die, without the ability to protect themselves, they could not escape the fate of death. You want to break this old man's blood soul array? The old monster, who was surrounded by 4 golden core cultivators, retreated in a sorry state. When he saw Fengjiu trying to break his array from the corner of his eye, he immediately moved his hand and muttered an incantation. In the next moment, he waved his hand, and the green willow, the wisp, split into 2 and shot into the eyes of those people on the ground. Green flames appeared in those people's lifeless eyes, as if they had been injected with souls. They stood up from the ground and attacked her at the same time. "Master, be careful." Suddenly, a voice sounded. Fengjiu was startled, and turned around to see Luo Yu, who was supposed to leave, running back. Her face immediately darkened. "Didn't I tell you to leave? Why did you come back? Aren't you afraid of dying?" She spent so much effort to save him, but who knew that he would give up the chance to live and run back? She was so angry. Luo Yu grinned, waved the thing in his hand, and shouted, "Master, I came back to help." Fengjiu saw that he was holding something similar to a bamboo tube, and did not know what it was, but seeing him run over, she hurriedly shouted, "Don't step on the blood patterns in the array." "Okay," he responded loudly as he rushed towards her. Seeing that she had turned around to deal with the people surrounding her, he immediately used a match to light one of the bamboo tubes and shouted, "Mistress, get out of the way." As soon as he finished speaking, he threw the bamboo tube in his hand in front of Fengjiu. At the same time, he also threw one in the direction of the people who were fighting. Fengjiu, she was startled, and quickly retreated, and at the same time, she saw the bamboo tube explode in the midst of those people who surrounded her, and exploded the dozen people who surrounded her, surrounded a dozen people, surrounded peoples, SSS. The explosion sound, the loud sound, it's, it's, a, cough. She retreated, choking on the smell of smoke, and coughed a few times. She was shocked that Luo Yu had gotten such a powerful explosive from who knows where. Bang! As for those 4 golden core cultivators and old monsters, they were not so lucky. Luo Yu threw the explosive in his hand towards them, and when it exploded, they could not dodge at all. Chapter 368. After all, Luo Yu was only a martial grandmaster cultivator. When he was suddenly glared at by the 4 or 5 golden core cultivators, he only felt a strong pressure coming towards him. His heart trembled uncontrollably, and his body was unable to move under the pressure. He couldn't even speak. Fengjiu was also stunned when he saw this scene. The power of Luo Yu's gunpowder was so great that it blasted a large hole in the ground. Some of the blood traces were destroyed and then reconnected. The 4 golden core cultivators were all covered in dirt, and their bodies were charred black. There was even a burnt smell coming from their hair. It was no wonder that they were all so angry. If it wasn't for the fact that he was one of them, Luo Yu would have been torn apart by them. "Brat, can't you throw it more accurately? Throw it at that old bastard." One of them pointed at the old monster, who was also charred black, and scolded. Hearing this, Luo Yu was stunned. After a while, he came back to his senses and nodded blankly. "Oh, okay. Then when I throw it, remember to move away. Otherwise..." He swallowed his saliva and suddenly felt that the gazes of these people had become very scary because of his words. "Luo Yu, retreat outside of the formation first." Fengjiu directly took the few gunpowder tubes that he was holding in his arms. He thought that since he couldn't get close, he could use them to destroy the formation core. "Okay. Master, be careful. This is very powerful. You have to move away." Luo Yu instructed and then quickly retreated 100 meters away. Because it was a battle between golden core cultivators, he really couldn't withstand the power. "You guys keep him busy. When I destroy his formation core, his strength will be greatly reduced." she shouted at the golden core cultivators. At the same time, she waved the sharp sword in her hand. A sword chi attacked, slashing vertically at the skulls surrounding the formation core. Shio! Bang, bang, bang. The sword chi attacked in an arc, colliding with the skulls and creating loud bangs. However, after the dust settled, the skulls were covered in blood that surged from the ground. The originally empty eye holes were now emitting a strange blood-red light. One of them floated up and attacked Fingzhou. At this moment, Fingzhou was slightly stunned. He didn't expect the skulls to have such a strong resistance. Even Qing Fang's sword chi couldn't destroy them. Actually, what she didn't know was that the skull's resistance wasn't strong. What was strong was the blood that surrounded the skulls. It was the blood of countless Yin spirits that was resisting. The formation core was the weak point of this formation. If the formation core was destroyed, the hundreds of Yin spirits in this blood-soul formation would be turned into ashes. Therefore, even without the old monster's control, even if they were afraid of the ancient divine pressure on her, they could only hold on. Seeing this, Fengzhou ignited the explosive tubes in her hand and threw them out. One was thrown at the skulls, and the other was thrown at the center of the formation. Then, she quickly retreated. Just as she retreated, she heard two loud rumbles behind her. The power was so great that even the dust on the ground was blown up. Pooh! The old monster who wanted to go forward but was held back by the 4 golden core cultivators suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood-red aura on his body gradually weakened. His entire person seemed to have aged in an instant. Even the skin on his face wrinkled. Chapter 369. As soon as he finished speaking, all the aura in his body surged. The powerful pressure and airflow from his body accompanied by the roaring of the bloody and deathly aura. His bloodthirsty and malicious eyes stared straight at Fengzhou. His whole body flew out like a rocket, enveloping Fengzhou with all the airflow and pressure in his body. He was determined to perish together with Fengzhou in this attack. The overwhelming deathly aura swept across and actually swept away the 4 golden core adepts. As they were swept away, they couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. That powerful pressure and airflow was clearly the full strength of a peak golden core adept. He was determined to perish together with Fengzhou in this attack. Just as he said, even if he died, he would drag the woman who ruined his plans down with him. Run! The 4 of them screamed. They were powerless to help and could only watch the woman in the silver-white robe stand there motionless. They didn't know if she was scared out of her wits or something else, but she just stood there and watched. They asked her to run, but she actually revealed a strange smile. It really made people think that she was scared out of her wits. Master! Luo Yu was also stunned by this scene. He wanted to go forward, but he couldn't because the old monster's golden core pressure was too strong. Even though he was 100 meters away, his whole body was stiff and couldn't move. He could only watch the scene unfold with his eyes wide open. Master Dada's fists were tightly clenched, and his heart was in a knot. In his opinion, Master should be unable to move under that pressure. At this moment, he was extremely regretful. If he had been more careful, perhaps Master wouldn't have been in danger because of him, and wouldn't have ended up in this situation. If Master died because of him, how could he explain it to everyone when he returned? He was afraid that his conscience wouldn't be at ease for the rest of his life. At this moment, he couldn't bear and didn't dare to watch the scene in front of him. He was used to bloody scenes of life and death, and his strength couldn't imagine seeing her blood splattered on the scene with his own eyes. However, he couldn't close his eyes. He couldn't not watch. Even if the blood was extremely bloody, even if the scene was extremely cruel, he had to open his eyes and watch. However, what he didn't expect was that what greeted him wasn't the scene of his master's blood splattering on the spot. Instead, it was an extremely shocking scene. Dressed in a silver-white robe, she stood in the night like a god, majestic and holy. She stood there without moving, without fear or surprise. The azure-edged sword was stabbed into the mud in front of her. Her hands formed a complicated seal in front of her, and her lips moved slightly as she chanted. As she formed the seal in her hand, a dazzling light emanated from her body. Her body emitted a powerful and shocking pressure. At this moment, her sharp gaze swept towards the old monster that was pouncing over. Her voice seemed to come from ancient times, dignified and cold. Divine Soul Phoenix Flame. Exterminate. Following her voice, a raging scarlet flame instantly surged out from her body. The flame stirred with a whoosh, forming the shape of a huge fire phoenix. A phoenix cry seemed to come from the shape of the fire phoenix, echoing in the night. In the next moment, the huge flame, accompanied by a powerful and shocking pressure, swept up the air and engulfed the old monster's entire being, and even the aura that was coming towards her, burning it. No. Chapter 370. Fengzhou seemed to have used up all the strength in her body. Seeing the old monster being burned to ashes by the phoenix flames, the crisis was averted. She only felt her vision darken and finally couldn't hold on any longer as she fell backwards. Mistress! Luo Yu recovered from the shocking scene. He didn't even have time to think about where that flame-shaped fire phoenix came from. Seeing her fall, he cried out in alarm and dashed over to catch her. Mistress! 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 He anxiously called out. Seeing that she had fainted in his arms, no matter how he called out, there wasn't the slightest bit of movement. Anxious and worried, he hurriedly used his hand to check her breathing. Seeing that she was still breathing, he finally relaxed. At this time, the 4 golden core cultivators also recovered from the shock. They looked at each other and couldn't suppress the shock in their hearts and from their souls. Looking at the person who had fainted, they hurriedly walked over. What are you doing? Luo Yu stared at them vigilantly. With one hand, he pulled out the Qingfeng sword that his mistress had stabbed into the ground and stored it in his space. Then, he quickly carried her and retreated. In his heart, he thought that if these 4 people had the intention to kill them, then with his strength, he wouldn't be able to protect his mistress. You don't have to be nervous. We don't have any bad intentions. One of them said, indicating for him not to be nervous. We've recognized her as our mistress, so she's our mistress. Let's first find a place to put her down. We'll check on her condition. Another person said. Looking at the surrounding area that was emitting a foul stench, he frowned. The other 2 nodded and said, That's right. The smell of blood in this place is too strong. Let's leave first. Seeing this, Luo Yu thought of how they had dealt with the old monster together. Only then did he relax and nodded, all right. Then, carrying the unconscious Fengzhou, he quickly left the area. The group of people found a place that was far away from the smell of blood before stopping. Placing her on the grass, Luo Yu then asked worriedly, Mistress doesn't have any wounds on her body, but why is she unconscious? Could she have suffered an internal injury? He wasn't Fan Lin and didn't understand medicine. At this time, he didn't know if she had suffered an internal injury. Let me take a look. One of the golden core cultivators said as he stepped forward to check her pulse. After a while, he retracted his hand and said, She fainted due to excessive consumption of her qi and blood. It should be because the last blow consumed too much of her qi and blood that she couldn't hold on and fainted. It's not a big deal. She should wake up after some rest. Hearing Zhang Xian's words, Luo Yu nodded. He didn't say anything else and simply sat by the side, watching over Zhang Xian. Let's treat our wounds and recuperate. After exchanging glances with each other, they walked to a spot not far away and changed out of their tattered and charred robes. They then took out medicine and bandaged their wounds. After that, they washed their faces with water from their water pouches before returning to the Fengzhou and sitting cross-legged to regulate their breathing. Time quietly passed by in the night. The tranquility after the crisis made people unable to help but relax. Perhaps it was because the powerful pressure that shrouded this place had gradually dissipated. As the sky gradually brightened, the roar of a ferocious beast could be faintly heard from the forest. However, what they didn't expect was that Feng Jiu would wake up at daybreak. They thought that she would wake up at dawn, but she actually fell asleep for 3 days and 3 nights. Chapter 371. Feng Manor. The dark night was serene. Midnight was the time when people slept the most deeply. Although the Feng Manor had people keeping watch, a figure still silently entered the Feng Manor. Like a ghost, it arrived at the old man's courtyard. 2 streams of air silently shot out from between his fingers. The guards guarding the courtyard froze and stood there motionlessly. They only saw a black figure wearing a large black cloak pass by them and enter the old man's room. The old man sleeping in the room was already a light sleeper. When a strange presence suddenly appeared in the room, he suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. Just as he was about to shout, a black figure approached and pressed a pressure point on his body. He immediately lost consciousness and fainted. The person wearing the black cloak that covered his entire body carried him on his shoulder. Just as he was about to leave the Feng Manor, he ran into Lao Bai, who was not sleeping at night. Chi! Lao Bai saw the person in the black cloak pass by with the old man in the black cloak. He leapt forward and opened his mouth to bite, but who knew that he would be met with a powder? He let out a low cry and fell to the ground, losing consciousness. The person in the black cloak glanced back at Lao Bai on the ground. With a wave of his sleeve, he quickly disappeared into the night with the old man. The next morning after Guan Shilin went to see Feng Shao, he did not see the old man's figure, so he asked, "Godfather, did grandfather not come?" Feng Shao, who was sitting on the bed, shook his head and said, "I did not see him this morning. Maybe he hasn't woken up yet." During this period of recuperation, in addition to the medicine and pills, his body recovered very quickly. However, when he coughed, his chest would still hurt. Although his complexion and blood had mostly recovered, his internal organs were injured. Even speaking loudly was painful. It was because of this that his daughter had specially run to Jufulin and said that she was going to find something that could be used to make medicine for him. However, she had been gone for many days. Who knew if they had encountered any danger? "You've been taking the medicine that Xiao Jiu left behind, right? Has the wound on your chest gotten better these past few days?" It's gotten better, but I can't get angry. If I get angry, it will still hurt." Feng Shao smiled and said, "In truth, this is already considered good. If it were not for Xiao Jiu's proficiency in medicine, I fear that I would not have been able to keep my life. Godfather, there's no need to worry. Xiao Jiu said that he can completely recover, so he definitely can. He just needs time to recover, but this is also good. Godfather, once you recover, you can go into secluded cultivation. I trust that your strength will soar." Feng Shao nodded and said with a smile, "I really didn't expect Xiao Jiu to be so capable. That day, father told me that Xiao Jiu had mentioned that she wanted to take us to another country to live and settle down there. In fact, in my opinion, it doesn't matter where we live. It's just that the family is together and safe. Yes. Being together as a family is more important than anything else." He looked at Feng Shao with a determined gaze and smiled. "That's why when I succeed in my cultivation, I want to enter Enchanting Kingdom's School of Stars and Clouds to cultivate. Then, I will find out where my parents are. I think, as long as I go out, I will definitely be able to find them." He smiled and encouraged, "That's right. Anything is possible as long as you do it." Chapter 372. Hearing this, Feng Shao was startled, and the smile on his face disappeared. He slowly lowered his gaze and remained silent. Seeing this, Guan Shilin felt a little apologetic. He knew that he had asked something he shouldn't have, so he hurriedly said, "Father, I'm sorry. I was just asking out of curiosity." Feng Xiao glanced at him and shook his head. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Ling Shuang quickly walk in from outside. Master, something has happened. At this moment, Ling Shuang's expression was cold and serious. Behind him were the 7 Phoenix guards. This was the first time they had stepped into this room, and it was also the first time they had seen their master leaning against the head of the bed with a good complexion since he had fallen unconscious. Although they were puzzled, they didn't ask too much. More importantly, the old man had been kidnapped and his whereabouts were unknown. Feng Xiao glanced at the 7 Phoenix guards who had followed him in, then looked at Ling Shuang and asked, "What's going on? What happened? Why are you in such a hurry?" Ling Shuang paused for a moment, then said, "Master, let me finish. Don't get angry and impatient." Seeing this, Feng Xiao nodded with a serious expression. He took a deep breath and said, "Speak. I'm not a brat. I won't lose my composure." He knew his body's condition. Ling Shuang's words were also reminding him that no matter what he heard, he had to remain calm. At this moment, the only thing he could think of was the old man and Xiao Zhou. Could it be that something had happened to them? Xiao Zhou was in Jufulan. Even if something had happened, the news couldn't have been sent back so quickly. So it could only be the old man. Thinking that he hadn't seen him since this morning, he exhaled softly and calmed himself down. He asked, "What happened to the old man?" "The old man has been kidnapped." She looked at Feng Xiao worriedly, afraid that he would be angered by the news. However, he wasn't. After hearing the news, his expression was calm. It was as if he was thinking about something. There was no panic, but the worry in his eyes could not be hidden. "What? Grandfather has been kidnapped. How is that possible?" Guan Shilin's face was filled with shock. He didn't quite believe what he had heard. With the old man's strength, who would have the ability to sneak into the Feng Manor and kidnap him without alerting anyone? "Tell me the details." Feng Zhao's voice as he spoke, his sharp eyes to Ling Shuang. "How was it discovered? And who discovered it? Tell me everything you know." "Yes." Ling Shuang complied and said, "When Master left, he told me to send a portion of medicinal food to the old man every day. When I went over this morning, I saw that the expressions of the guards in the yard were off. They were standing there with their bodies stiff. Only when I went forward to check did I realize that someone had sealed their acupuncture points. When I went into the old man's room to check, the bed was cold. There were no signs of fighting in the room, and after checking, there were no clues left behind. The only thing I know is that from the guards whose acupuncture points were sealed, a person wearing a black cloak kidnapped the old man last night." At this time, Fan Lin went forward and said, "Family head, after we received the news, we went to the manor to investigate. Last night, aside from Lao Bai calling out, we didn't hear anything else out of the ordinary." Lao Bai. Chapter 373. Hearing his question, the others thought that Lao Bai might know something. Chi Kong of the Phoenix Guards immediately said, "It should be at the fake mountain. I'll go take a look." As soon as he said this, he turned around and rushed out. "Family head, your body?" Fan Lin asked. He knew medicine. Seeing his family head's mental state, how was it not good in the slightest? But what was with the news that had been released recently? What exactly did the eldest young miss want to do? "My body is fine. I'm just taking advantage of the situation. It's good that you know. Don't let the news leak," Feng Xiao said in a calm voice. He gestured for Guan Shilin to help him get off the bed and sit at the table in the outer room. The others looked at each other. Suppressing the doubts in their hearts, they followed. No wonder the eldest young miss did not allow anyone to enter this room. It turned out that the family head was not unconscious. They had covered up this news quite well. If it were not for them coming in because they were worried, they might not have known that the family head's body was fine. The matter of the old man being kidnapped. Before Xiaojiu returns, seal off the news. Do not let the slightest bit of news leak out. Feng Xiao calmed down and said in a calm voice, also, if anyone comes to visit the manor, close the door and refuse to see them. Yes. The others replied in a low voice. They knew the severity of the problem. Currently, Feng Xiao was unconscious. If the news of the old man being kidnapped was leaked, it would be one disaster after another for the Feng Manor. Currently, the Powers and the royal family did not dare to move against the Feng Manor because they were afraid of the old man and the Phoenix Guard's power. If they found out that the old man was missing and kidnapped, the consequences would be unthinkable. Not long after, Qi Kong returned and said, Lao Bai is sleeping very soundly at the fake mountain. I checked and found some powder on the ground. My initial guess is that when the person kidnapped the old master last night, Lao Bai should have discovered it. He was just tricked. Also, I found this under Lao Bai's belly. He took out the item he had found while moving Lao Bai and placed it on the table. Master, take a look. Does this belong to the old master? It was a piece of jade the size of a fingernail. The quality of the jade was excellent. It was dark green and moist. Although it was only a small piece, it could be seen from the moist surface that this piece of jade was not an ordinary piece of jade. This isn't old master's. After looking at it, Feng Xiao shook his head and pondered, this kind of jade is very common even in the brilliant Sun Empire. It should have been accidentally dropped by the people who kidnapped the old man. However, with such a small piece of jade the size of a fingernail, it would be impossible to investigate. It's better to have some clues than no clues at all. At least we know that the old man's life shouldn't be in danger. Guan Shilin said as he picked up the nail-sized jade piece and said, I'll take this jade piece to the black market and let them check it out. Maybe they'll know where this jade came from. If there are clues, we can also track down Grandpa's whereabouts. And you can take this jade piece to the black market. However, this is our only clue. Be careful not to lose it. Feng Xiao nodded as he spoke. Thinking of how Guan Shilin had said that the old man's life would not be in danger, he relaxed slightly. Chapter 374. However, if news of the old man being kidnapped were to spread, perhaps a disaster would befall the Feng Manor. Family head, approximately when will the eldest young miss return? Should we send someone to look for her? One of the Feng guards asked. The current situation in the manor was not too optimistic. If news were to spread, the manor would not even have a pillar of support. She should be back soon. This matter will be suppressed for now. You just need to take care of the manor. Everything will be discussed when she returns. Feng Xiao spoke calmly. He waved his hand and gestured for them to leave. Seeing this, the few people looked at each other and then left. Presently, the manor's old man had disappeared, the family head could not appear, and the eldest young miss was not home. Only they could protect the Feng Manor during this period of time to ensure that nothing unexpected happened. Godfather, you rest for now. I will go to the black market. As Guan Shilin spoke, he took the nail-sized piece of jade and walked out. If he wanted to investigate the origin of this piece of jade, he could only begin with the black market. After all, even in the large country of Glorious Sun, only the black market's influence extended to the other countries. Go. Feng Xiao nodded and pondered what his next step should be. Leng Hua, who was waiting to the side, received his sister's signal and said, Family head, your body has not recovered yet. Go back to bed and lie down first. It's fine. I need to think about something. He waved his hand, not wanting to lie down on the bed. Earlier, he could not move too much. Now, the external injuries on his body were recovering very quickly. Getting out of bed and walking around was not a problem. Naturally, he did not want to lie down on the bed. Moreover, he needed to think about this matter carefully. In the end, the old man had been kidnapped by someone. What had he been kidnapped for? If it had been his daughter who had been kidnapped, he would have felt that the other party had taken an interest in his daughter's beauty. However, the one who had been kidnapped was the old man. This matter was very strange. Because the Foam Manor had closed its doors to guests, and because everyone in the manor was tight-lipped, the matter of the old man being kidnapped and missing was suppressed. Aside from a few people in the manor, no one outside knew of this news. On the other side, in the 9 Volts forest. After being unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights, Fengjiu woke up and looked at the people beside him. His eyes flickered as he recalled what had happened before he fainted. He wanted to sit up, but this movement was noticed by Luoyu, who was resting with his eyes closed. "Master, are you awake?" Luoyu looked at her in surprise. Seeing that she had woken up, he quickly helped her up. The few people sitting not far away heard the movement and opened their eyes. Seeing that she had woken up, the 4 of them stood up and came to her side. They cupped their hands and bowed to her, "Master." Logically speaking, they originally felt that she couldn't accept this bow. After all, she wasn't even a Foundation Establishment cultivator, while they were already Golden Core cultivators. However, after witnessing her strength and methods, they were willing to accept this bow wholeheartedly and wholeheartedly convinced. Hearing the 4 call him master, Fengjiu revealed a smile. It was only at this moment that he began to carefully examine the people in front of him. Although the 4 of them were all Golden Core cultivators, their strengths were different. 2 of them were in their 40s, while the other 2 looked to be in their 50s or 60s. The 4 of them all wore gray robes. Although they looked unremarkable, the aura of Golden Core cultivators could not be ignored. Chapter 375. Hearing this, the 4 of them were slightly startled. What did she mean? If they were unwilling, how could they acknowledge her as their master? Moreover, the lifeline of their souls was in her hands. Did they have any other choice? As if she knew what they were thinking, Fengjiu took out 4 strands of their souls and returned them to them. She said, "I took a strand of your souls just in case. Now that the danger is gone, I'll return this strand of your souls to you. If you want to leave, then leave on your own." The 4 divine souls were retrieved by the 4 of them. However, at this moment, their hearts trembled slightly. With their strength, if she could take them as her subordinates, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. However, they did not expect that she would actually return their divine souls to them and even say such words. Regardless of whether she was sincere or testing them, at this moment, their lifeline was no longer in her hands. To them, this was real and could be considered a good thing. After all, no one was willing to have their lives in someone else's hands. However, giving them the choice of whether to leave or not, giving them a second chance to make a decision, made the 4 of them fall silent. Stay. Or leave? This was a question worth pondering. At this moment, Luoyu also nervously held his breath as he looked at them. Would the 4 of them choose to stay? If they chose to stay, then it would definitely be a good thing for Master. After all, the strength of these 4 Golden Core cultivators far surpassed the strength of the Phoenix Guards. The 4 of them fell silent for a while and looked at each other. Then, they said to Fengjiu, "We're willing to stay and serve Master." In terms of the present, her strength was indeed not enough for them to be loyal to her. However, they were looking at the long term. From the battle that night, they knew that she was definitely not someone who would stay in a small pond. Hearing this, Fengjiu curled her lips into a smile. Light flickered in her eyes and between her brows was a sense of confidence and arrogance. She said, "You'll know that the decision you made today is the most correct one." She stood up from the ground and looked straight at them. She said, "But you must remember that my subordinates will not allow anyone with disloyalty. If one day you betray me, no matter where you are, I will kill you no matter how far you are." The four of them were shocked by the coldness and imposing manner in her voice. At this moment, they did not doubt her words at all. If they really betrayed her one day, she would definitely do what she said today. Thinking of this, the four of them composed themselves and asked with a serious expression, "May I ask for your name, master?" She glanced at them and said, "Fengzhou." The four of them nodded. At this moment, they pointed two fingers to the sky and said in a low voice, "We hereby swear that from today onwards, we will be loyal to Fengzhou and treat him as our master. We will follow him for life and will never betray him. If I violate this oath, I shall be punished by heaven and earth." Almost as soon as they finished speaking, a complex pattern appeared on the ground where the four of them were standing. It was connected by surging spiritual energy and finally disappeared between their eyebrows. Seeing this scene, Fengzhou's eyes moved slightly. If he was still a little worried about them before, at this moment, it could be said that he was completely relieved. An oath to heaven and earth was not a joke. If they really dared to betray her and have disloyalty towards her, heaven and earth would kill them without her doing anything. This was the law of heaven and earth in this world. Chapter 376. With this oath, he naturally did not have any suspicions towards them. He naturally trusted them. However, at this moment, he still felt that everything was like a dream. It was so unreal. Who would have thought that he would almost die in Jiufu Forest when he had only come with his master to look for medicine? Now, not only had he not died, his master had also taken in 4 golden core cultivators as subordinates. If these 4 people were in the country of Glorious Sun, even the country's ruler would have to treat them with respect. Now, however, they were only his master's subordinates. Just thinking about it made him excited. If he had not come out with his master, he would not have thought that his master would be so powerful. Fengzhou looked at the 4 of them and said with a smile, "I came to Jiufu Forest to look for medicine. Since you have all chosen to serve me as your master, then come back to the Feng Manor with me after you have obtained the medicine." "Yes." The 4 complied and followed her into the depths of the forest. The few of them stayed in the 9 volts forest for another 2 days. With 4 golden core cultivators around, some of the ferocious beasts in the forest did not dare to approach them. Thus, they did not encounter any danger or delay along the way. In the meantime, Feng Jiu brought them to the deepest part of Jiufu Forest and dug out the volcano earth core black mud ore that she needed for this trip. Only then did she leave with them and head towards Yunhua City. After all, there was no way to hide the truth. The Feng Manor closed its doors every day, and the old man was nowhere to be seen. The Feng Manor's strange movements naturally attracted the attention of those who were interested. After asking around, the news of the old man's disappearance finally spread. The Feng guards had no way of covering it up. "Family head, I don't know how the news got out. Early in the morning, the entire city knew about it. Now, quite a few people have sent people to inquire about the old man's whereabouts. Even the country's ruler has sent people over." Inside Feng Zhao's room, a Feng guard reported the current situation in the city as well as the Feng Manor's current situation. Once the news of the old man's disappearance spread, not only were the people outside the manor discussing it, even the people inside the manor were discussing it. There were even some servants who were extremely worried. After all, as they saw it, with the family head unconscious and the old man missing, the Feng Manor might not be able to hold on. "Don't worry about what's happening outside the manor. Just make sure that everyone in the manor doesn't panic." Feng Xiao said in a calm voice as he asked, "How is the matter? I asked you to transfer the Phoenix Guards back. We've already sent one of our men back to call for reinforcements. They should arrive within the next 2 days." Hearing this, Feng Xiao nodded, "Yes, remember not to attract the attention of the forces in the city. Let them disguise themselves and wait for orders in the city. Also, if Xiao Jiu comes back, come and tell me immediately." "Yes." Fan Lin responded and left. However, just as Fan Lin left, another Phoenix guard walked in. "Master, there are 2 martial arts great masters outside the residence who have come to visit. They are carrying orders from the palace and told them that the residence is closed to visitors. However, they refused to leave and said that they must enter the residence today." Hearing this, Feng Xiao, who was sitting on the bed with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and asked with a frown, "Wu Zong?" He thought for a moment then said, "Then they're the country's people. However, what are they doing here?" The Phoenix guard hesitated for a moment then glanced at him and said, "They seem to have come for old Bai." What? Chapter 377. These people are so shameless. Feng Xiao angrily shouted. His anger aggravated his internal injuries, and he couldn't help but grunt in pain. "Family head, your body hasn't recovered yet. You can't get angry." Leng Hua spoke from the side. He glanced at the phone guard and said with a bit of displeasure, "Weren't the matters given to you to handle? Why are you asking the family head about this matter? The family head's health isn't good. Master said that we can't get angry. If his condition worsens, can you bear the consequences?" Hearing this, the phone guard was stunned. It seemed that he never thought that Leng Hua, who had been silently watching over the family head like an invisible person, would say such a thing. Hearing his meaning, it seemed that he wanted them to make their own decisions and not disturb the family head. However, if the family head was unconscious, that would be one thing, but the family head was awake. If the matters were decided without his permission, they were worried that they wouldn't do a good job. "Go, block them. Our Feng family is now a family clan. We no longer have anything to do with them. Even if they come with the country's token, block them. And they want to covet Xiaozhuo's old Bai. They really are shameless." Feng Xiao angrily spoke, but he held his chest in fear of aggravating his internal injuries. At the same time, he slowed down his voice and suppressed his anger. "Yes." After receiving the order, the phone guard retreated. When he turned around, he glanced at the young man who was busy pouring water for the family head. The words of this young man, who seemed unremarkable to them, were filled with decisiveness and fierceness. It caused them to have a whole new level of respect for him. Outside the manor, 2 elders stood with their hands behind their backs. Seeing that the door hadn't opened for a long time, anger appeared on their faces. One of them heavily snorted, "How long has he been gone? Who did he ask for permission? Why hasn't the door opened after so long? There's no one in the manor. The person in charge really is different. He doesn't even know the rules." The other elder also angrily spoke. Ever since that battle, they didn't have the slightest good impression of the Feng manor. Since the country's lord wanted to exterminate someone, they naturally didn't need to give him any face. Moreover, the elders of the Feng manor had disappeared, and Feng Xiao was lying half dead. What could the remaining girl do? If it wasn't for the Feng guard, the Feng manor could have been overthrown at any time. How could the country's lord not know that they had come here today? How was that possible? In truth, the lord just wanted to see how much longer the Feng manor could hold on. He also wanted to see how he could take over the Feng manor's Feng guards. Based on what they knew, he was currently making plans. They believed that it would not be long before the various powers in the city would take action against the Feng manor. When that time came, the Feng manor's eldest young miss, Feng Qinggu, would have no one to help her. Naturally, she would have to go to the country's lord. The country's lord would then take advantage of this opportunity to have her hand over the Phoenix Guards and have the Phoenix Guards return to the palace. Without the Feng manor's protection, without Feng Xiao and the old man's protection, not to mention secondary princess, even if Feng Qinggu was a concubine, she would still have to marry. At this time, the Feng manor's door opened. The 2 angrily raised their heads. When they saw the 6 Feng guards walk out, they furrowed their brows and asked, "What happened? Is the Feng manor's eldest young miss not home?" Why is it so troublesome to pass a message? Chapter 378. Hearing these words, the two were clearly enraged. One of them shouted, "How bold! Do you know who we are? You actually dare to refuse us entry. It's the same no matter who comes. Please return." The 6 of them blocked the entrance and calmly looked at the 2 elders who were closing in. Their cultivations had not reached the level of a martial ancestor, but if their masters came, not to mention these 2, even if 2 more came, they would have to crawl out. Perhaps they felt that the current Feng manor was no longer fearful, but the 2 elders saw that they were blocking the entrance and did not allow them to enter. One of them strode forward and waved his sleeve, shouting, "Leave. This old man wants to go in and see the Feng family's eldest young miss. If you continue to block me, do not blame this old man for being impolite." The 6 people were shocked by the elders' pressure and their bodies were pushed back in an instant. Just as they were about to take action, they heard a voice. "What is going on here?" When the voice came, everyone outside the Feng Manor's entrance followed the voice and looked at the person who had come. They saw Murong Yixian, who was wearing a purple robe, with one hand in front of him and the other behind his back. His handsome face was slightly heavy and his brow was slightly furrowed. His gaze was filled with displeasure and sharpness as he stared at the 2 elders. "Aren't the 2 of you guarding my lord father's side? Why have you come to the Feng Manor's entrance to cause trouble?" The usually warm voice was now filled with dignity and displeasure. He stared at the 2 elders with a gaze that was as sharp as a sword. It was as if he wanted to see through their thoughts. "Greetings, third prince." The 2 elders saw that the person who had come was Murong Yixian and were slightly startled. They did not dare put on airs and saluted in a proper manner. As they saw it, although Murong Yixian was only a prince, his talent and strength were extremely outstanding among the younger generation. In the future, his achievements would definitely not be normal. In fact, he would far surpass Murong Bo. Thus, the 2 did not dare be too impudent in front of him. However, Murong Yixian's marriage with Feng Qinggu had already been ruined. Why did he keep coming to the Feng Manor? Based on what they knew, the people of the Feng Manor did not like him very much. Third prince. The 6 Phoenix guards also cupped their hands and bowed. Then, their gazes swept past the 2 elders who had their eyes lowered and did not speak. Fan Lin opened his mouth and said, "The manor has orders to close the doors and refuse to see anyone." After we reported this, these 2 elders refused to leave and even wanted to force their way in. They said that they wanted to exchange something with our eldest miss for her mount, Old White. Third prince, please ask if this is the intention of these 2 elders. Or is it the monarch's idea? Hearing those words, Murong Yixian's gaze slightly sunk as he swept towards the 2 old men. Is this true? The 2 of them hesitated and remained silent. Seeing the 2's expressions, Murong Yixian's face became stern, saying, "The Feng Manor is a family that protects the country. Even if power has already been handed over, even if General Feng has fallen, this prince will not allow anyone to bully the people of the Feng Manor. This time, this prince will not argue with you, but if there is a next time, even if Imperial Father protects you, this prince will not let you off easily." His voice was stern and dignified. When the originally gentle and refined person became angry, it caused people to not dare look him in the eye. His words were forceful. Not only did it let the 2 elders know his position, it also let the surrounding people secretly observing the Feng Manor know that he was definitely protecting the Feng Manor. Chapter 379. Being scolded like this, the 2 old men became angry from embarrassment, but they restrained themselves. They only glanced at the Phoenix guards and did not salute Murong Yixian before leaving with a flick of their sleeves. Even Murong Bo would not use such a tone to speak to them, but this Murong Yixian did not give them any face when scolding them. What did he say about giving face to his father? If he really was giving face to his father, then he should not be protecting the Feng Manor. Murong Yixian watched the two of them leave, but his heart sank. Who knew what he was thinking? After a long time, he glanced at the Phoenix guards and wanted to say something, but in the end, he only glanced at the Foam Manor and left without saying anything. The Phoenix guards saw him turn and leave and could not help but look at each other. They returned to the main gate and closed it again, hiding the curiosity and prying eyes of outsiders towards the Foam Manor. 2 days later, in the morning, the sky had not yet brightened and the surroundings were dark. The flying boat quietly landed outside Yunyu City. It did not disturb anyone and did not attract anyone's attention. After they disembarked from the flying boat, Fengjiu put away the flying boat and said, "Luo Yu, you return to the manor first. I will be back before nightfall." "Master is not going back now." Luo Yu was slightly startled. They were already in Yunyu City. If she did not return to the Foam Manor, where would she go? Fengjiu glanced at him. "I did not say, so don't ask. You will know what you need to know." Hearing this, he smiled embarrassedly and replied, "Yes, then I will return to the manor first." As he spoke, he began to walk forward. However, the sky was still not bright and the city gates had not opened. In order to not attract attention, Fengjiu changed into a set of old and tattered clothes before entering the city. When the sky was bright and the city gates opened, he and the 4 golden core cultivators headed towards Peach Blossom Cove. Luo Yu, who had returned to the city, sensed that something was off the moment he entered the city. Some of the small businesses in the city or the beggars squatting in the corners all smiled at him when they saw him. Especially when he passed by a tea stall and saw a familiar face, he knew that he had not mistaken those people. He had originally planned on going straight to the Foam Manor, but now he stopped and sat down at the tea stall. He loudly called out, "Give me a cup of tea." "He's here." The person who was busy making tea responded and walked over with the teapot. When he saw the person sitting there, he was slightly startled. Seeing that it was still early and there were not many people on the street, he smiled and went forward. He lowered his voice and asked, "Captain, why are you here?" "I should be the one asking you that. Why are you all here? Why are there so many of our brothers lying in ambush as soon as I enter the city? What's going on?" He had only gone out with his master for a while. Why was it that when he came back, he saw that the Phoenix guards had been transferred over? What were they trying to do by disguising themselves as commoners in the city? "We received orders to come here. All of our brothers are in the city." "Captain, did you just come back? I heard that you went out with the eldest young miss. You probably don't know what happened in the Feng family recently, right?" Luo Yu, who had just taken a sip of tea, suddenly had a bad premonition. He asked, "What happened?" "We don't know the exact situation. We only know that the old man has been kidnapped. It's already been a few days." The man lowered his voice and spoke. He then saw the captain, who had been drinking tea, suddenly change his expression. He put down the cup of tea on the table and suddenly stood up. He then walked toward the Foam Manor. Chapter 380. Luo Yu, who had quickly returned to the Foam Manor, headed straight for Feng Zhao's courtyard. Fan Lin and the others heard that he had returned, and they all came out to welcome him. They originally thought that they would see the eldest young miss, but who knew that they would only see Luo Yu return alone. "Luo Yu, why did you come back alone? Where's the eldest young miss?" Luo Yu saw them and quickly asked, "I heard that the old master was kidnapped." What was going on? Based on the old master's strength, how could he have been kidnapped? There's no mistake, right? The old master was kidnapped, and his whereabouts are unknown. We suppressed the news for a few days. We originally thought that we could suppress it until the eldest young miss returned, but who knew that the news would spread in just a few days? Because of this, the manor has not been able to rest for the past few days. Hearing this, Luo Yu asked, "When I entered the city, I saw that all of my brothers had arrived. Master and the others shouldn't have also come, right? They've all come. They're currently in the family head's courtyard. Fan Lin said, then asked, where's the eldest young miss? Why didn't she come back with you? Something shouldn't have happened, right? He could not be blamed for thinking this way. Recently, one thing after another had happened in the Feng manor. It was hard for him not to think this way. Bah, bah, bah. What nonsense are you saying? Master is doing very well. He unhappily glared at them and said, I'll go see the family head and master first. As he spoke, he quickly walked toward Feng Zhao's courtyard. Seeing this, the few of them quickly followed behind. In Feng Zhao's courtyard, 8 middle-aged men in their 40s were currently sitting in the courtyard with serious expressions. Who knew what they were talking about? Occasionally, they would nod and whisper to each other. Only when they saw a figure quickly walk in did they stop talking. Master! Martial uncles! Luo Yu stepped into the courtyard and called out, arriving in front of them, you've all come. Luo Yu's master glanced at him but did not see Feng Qingji's figure. He could not help but ask with a heavy expression, didn't you say that you went out with the eldest young miss? Why is it only you? Where's the eldest young miss? Master still had something to do. She said that she would return in the evening and told me to come back first. Hearing this, the expressions on their faces eased a little. The masters in the manor had met with mishaps one after another. They were worried that something would happen to eldest Mississippi. If that happened, it would be really troublesome. Since you've already recognized her as your master, you should stay by her side and protect her. Why did you come back by yourself? Right now, the Fu is in troubled times. If something were to happen to eldest miss, who would bear the responsibility? Luo Yu's master reproached him, blaming him for not accompanying Fingzhou to protect her. Hearing this, Luo Yu looked at his master with an aggrieved expression and said, Master doesn't want me to follow her, so I can't disobey her words. Ling Shuang walked out of his room and called out to Luo Yu, the family head is calling for you. Master, martial uncles, I'll go in first to report this matter to the patriarch, he said and quickly walked into the room. When the people in the courtyard saw this, they looked at each other. When they saw that the other Phoenix guards had arrived, they said, all of you, come here. Fan Lin and the others obeyed and walked over, each calling out to their master. One of the middle-aged men glanced at the 7 people and said in a heavy voice, let me ask you, why is it that among the 8 of you, only Luo Yu has recognized her as his master? When they heard this, they fell silent, not knowing what to say. Chapter 381. Fan Lin hesitated for a moment, glanced at them, and said, we originally wanted to see eldest Miss's ability, but we didn't expect it to drag on. Luo Yu, on the other hand, was beaten up by eldest Miss once and immediately recognized her as his master. Humph. I think you're all used to being arrogant. The middle-aged man heavily snorted and clasped his hands behind his back, saying, don't forget, you are all Phoenix guards. We raised you since you were young and trained you for the sake of becoming eldest young Miss right-hand men. Now, look at yourselves. You've been here for so long, yet you still haven't recognized her as your master. Hearing that they were being reprimanded, they lowered their heads and did not speak. They had indeed gone too far in this matter. I will give you a reminder. Seize the opportunity yourselves. Otherwise, you'll be crying if you miss it. The middle-aged man snorted and gestured, leave. Don't just stand there. Yes. The few of them replied and left the room. After they left, the people in the courtyard shook their heads, these children are too arrogant. How could they not know what Fan Lin and the others were thinking? Thinking back, they were also like this in the past. They were arrogant and did not want to recognize a useless person as their master. But in the end, they were subdued by their master. It was not only because of his strength, but also because of his character and loyalty. That brat Luo Yu usually doesn't seem to be much of a show-off. Who would have thought that he would be more perceptive than the others in this matter? One of them revealed a smile. It was clear that he was very satisfied with Luo Yu's actions. That's right. I never thought that Luo Yu would be the first to recognize her as his master. That brat's perceptiveness is quite good. Another person nodded and smiled. Another person also smiled and said, "We haven't seen eldest young miss in a long time." If it weren't for Master mentioning it, we never would have thought that eldest young miss would have this kind of ability. It really is too surprising. In regards to Fingzhou's identity as a ghost doctor, their master, Feng Xiao, had already told them. It was because of this that they were angry that the 7 Phoenix Guards had not recognized her as their master. They had spent the entire day in the Feng Manor, yet they had not even figured out the identity of the eldest young miss, the ghost doctor. Also, only Luo Yu had recognized her as master. How could they be so blind? As for Luo Yu, he was currently telling Feng Xiao about what they had encountered along the way. When Feng Xiao heard that they had encountered such danger along the way, his heart tightened. It was only when he heard that they had escaped and that even the 4 Golden Core cultivators had recognized Xiao Jiu as their master that he finally relaxed. Good. It's good that you're back safely. He exhaled lightly. He felt that this trip was extremely dangerous. If they hadn't turned misfortune into fortune, it would have been difficult for them to return alive. When he thought of this, his heart tightened. He thought to himself, I have to tell Xiao Jiu to be more careful in the future. If he isn't confident in winning, he can't be so reckless. Like this time, if he's careless and something happens, the consequences will be unimaginable. To deal with an old monster at the peak of the Golden Core stage, a little girl like her was truly too reckless. Luo Yu glanced at Feng Xiao then continued, after entering the city, Master and the others left. However, I reckon that Master still doesn't know about the old man's disappearance, but Master said that he would return home in the evening. Chapter 382. At this moment, in the Peach Blossom Cove, Fengzhou first let the 4 Golden Core cultivators stay here while she went to the courtyard where the soul wood was placed. The courtyard was located in a more secluded place and there was less sunlight and it was cooler. In addition, ever since their family cultivated in this courtyard with the help of the talisman soul wood, the yin qi here was even stronger. Under the shade of a tree, where there was no sunlight, a few figures gradually appeared. When they saw Fingzhou's arrival, their faces were filled with joy and they all bowed to her and respectfully greeted her. Master. Because the 4 ghosts had cultivated here for a few days, their yin qi had already stabilized. In addition, Fengzhou had given them the ghost cultivation method. Even if it was not night time, they could already appear in front of others. Fengzhou's gaze swept past them and she smiled. Looks like your cultivation speed is not bad. You have already cultivated to the first level of soul condensation in such a short time. This is all thanks to Master. If it weren't for the fact that Master gave us the precious ghost cultivation method, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to condense our souls in such a short time. The old man said with a happy smile on his face. Being able to condense their souls meant that they could appear in the day like a living person and walk in front of others in their human form. To them, this was originally something that they did not dare to imagine. It's good that you have succeeded in your cultivation. She nodded and walked to the table to sit down. She asked them a few things that had happened here recently. Master, everything is normal here. Even if a cultivator came, he would not be able to sense our presence. However, the old man's voice paused and he said, the old man sweeping the floor in the Peach Blossom Cove is not simple. She raised her eyebrows. Tell me. Master said that we could move about as we pleased in the Peach Blossom Cove. That night, we went out for a day and just happened to run into that old man. At that time, he almost killed us. Fortunately, we said that we had Master's permission to cultivate here. Only then did he flick his sleeves and leave. He only told us not to disturb the people who came to the Peach Blossom Cove. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. When she first came in, she could tell that the old man was not simple. The aura on his body was very well hidden. Even she did not know how high his cultivation was. After such a long time, seeing that nothing had happened, she did not pay him any attention and allowed him to continue sweeping. You can continue cultivating here. Yang is doing very well. My father has hired a teacher to teach him how to read and write. He has also personally taught Yang some basic cultivation methods. When your cultivation is a bit higher and you can walk without fear of the sun, you can go to the Feng Manor to see him. Hearing this, they looked at each other with joy and said to Fengjiu, "Many thanks, Master, for nurturing Yang. We will definitely work hard to cultivate." Fengjiu nodded, and then she stood up and walked out. As soon as she walked out of the courtyard, she saw the gray-clothed old man standing nearby with a broom in his hand. The smile on the corners of her mouth deepened when she saw this, and she walked over. "Is something the matter?" She stopped in front of him and asked. She was a bit curious. What kind of person was he? Why was he willing to silently sweep the floor as an old man? The old man glanced at her, then narrowed his eyes and said, "Young Miss has just returned. You should not know. Recently, everyone has been saying that the Feng family's old man has gone missing." Chapter 383. It's been a few days. The old man slowly spoke. Holding the broom, he slowly swept the ground and walked further and further away. Seeing this, Fengjiu walked forward. After speaking with the 4 golden core cultivators, she quickly returned to the Feng Manor. Because she had returned home early, she arrived outside the Feng Manor's walls before evening. Seeing that there was no one around, she leapt up. When she landed in the Feng Manor's courtyard, several shouts could be heard. "Who is it?" The guards rushed over, but due to the tattered clothes the other party was wearing and the dust on his face, they couldn't tell who he was. They thought that he was someone who had sent him here. Just as they were about to draw their swords, they heard a familiar voice. "It's me." Fengjiu spoke and looked at the guards surrounding her. The guards were startled. After they recovered, they respectfully called out, "Eldest young miss." They then retreated. She nodded and walked towards her father's courtyard. Hiss. When she passed by the fake mountain, Old White, who was lying on the ground, let out a hiss. He swung his ponytail and happily ran towards her. He stuck out his tongue and wanted to lick her face. "Old White." She patted his head and said with a smile, "I have something to do right now. I'll find you later. Be good and go play by yourself." As she spoke, she continued walking. Old White did not bother her. However, he slowly followed behind her and headed towards Feng Zhao's courtyard. The Phoenix guards who were guarding outside the courtyard were slightly startled when they saw the shabby figure walking over. They hesitated for a moment before calling out, "Eldest young miss." Fengjiu glanced at them and asked, "Has Luo Yu returned?" "Luo Yu has returned. Right now, he should be in the courtyard. Should this subordinate call him over?" Fan Lin asked. "No need." She spoke and walked into the courtyard. She saw that there were 8 people either standing or sitting in the courtyard. They were all around 40 years old. "Eldest young miss has returned." When the 8 people saw her, they stood up and respectfully saluted her. "Greetings, eldest young miss." She nodded and walked forward. She did not recognize those 8 people, but she had an impression of them in her memory. He was her father's Phoenix Guard and also the master of the 8 squad leaders. "Master." Ling Shuang walked out. Seeing her return, a touch of joy appeared on his cold face. "How is my father?" she asked as she walked in. "The patriarch is doing very well," Ling Shuang said as he followed behind her. Because there were guards both inside and outside the courtyard, the door of the nearest room was not closed. His master had told him to let the air in the room circulate, which was beneficial for the master's recovery. "Master, you're back." Leng Hua smiled happily when he saw her. "I'm back." She nodded and went to the inner room. "Father, I'm back." Ling Shuang and Leng Hua retreated, leaving the two of them alone. Ling Shuang then said, "Hua, you wait here. I'll go back to the courtyard and take care of some matters before I come back." "All right." Leng Hua responded and watched her leave. He stood in the courtyard and stared at the 8 middle-aged men. "You're Leng Hua, right?" one of the middle-aged men asked. A smile appeared on his usually serious face. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed a bit stiff. Leng Hua looked at them and nodded, on. Chapter 384. It's called Taiji Fist. "I learned it from Master," he said happily with a smile. There were so many people in the residence, but Master only taught him. Taiji Fist. The 8 middle-aged men looked at each other. They had never heard of this fist technique before. However, with their cultivation and eyesight, they could naturally see that the fist technique was very exquisite. It used softness to overcome hardness, and it had the power to deflect thousands of pounds with little effort. "Ah, Ling Hua, how about we exchange a few moves?" one of them said, wanting to test the power of the fist. Unexpectedly, Ling Hua shook his head. "No, Master taught me Taiji Fist not only to strengthen my body, but also to give me the ability to protect myself. It's not for me to show off." Hearing this, the corners of their mouths twitched. "It's not for showing off, it's for a spar." Why was this young man so stubborn? Didn't they say that he had taught a lesson to one of the Phoenix guards the other day? Why was his brain so stubborn now? "That won't do. I don't fight with my own people." He shook his head as he spoke. He stood at attention, not intending to pay them any more attention. Seeing this, they couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. They didn't know where eldest Miss had found this pair of siblings. Although they weren't very strong, they were very loyal to eldest Mississippi. "Is Xiaojiu back?" Guan Shilin strode in from outside. He looked at the 8 middle-aged men in the courtyard and nodded. "Young master, Master is back. She's in the room," Leng Hua said, pointing to the room. Guan Shilin strode forward and said, "I was looking for her." He came to the door and knocked on it before walking in. Seeing the two people sitting and talking, he walked up to them. "Godfather, Xiaojiu. Shilin, you're here. Sit." Feng Xiao gestured for him to sit at the side. "Brother, did you find out anything about the jade slip?" Her father had already told her about what happened that night. From what she could see, that person had only kidnapped her grandfather and hadn't hurt anyone in the residence. They probably wouldn't do anything to her grandfather. However, she didn't know what was involved in this. She actually came to kidnap her grandfather. With her grandfather's strength, the strength of the person who kidnapped him must be extraordinary. She was even certain that the person was not from the glorious sun. Leave it to the black market to investigate, but there is no news until now. After all, it will take some time for the news to travel back and forth. However, Supervisor Yen said that once there is news, he will inform us immediately. As Guan Shilin spoke, he looked at Feng Zhou and said, "I heard from Luo Yu that you were also in trouble. It's good that you came back safe and sound. How could you confront a master at the peak of the elixir realm head-on? If something happens, what do you want foster father to do?" "Yes. Xiaojiu, you have to be more careful in the future. Don't mess around like you did this time. After all, your strength is limited. You have to act according to your ability. Even if Luo Yu loses his life because of this, no one will blame you. After all, the opponent is too strong." We don't agree with you risking your life like this. Feng Xiao reminded her in a serious tone. He only hoped that she would remember the danger this time and not mess around in the future. Yes, I know. She responded with a smile. Her eyes were curved and her face was dirty. She looked like a playful little tabby cat, which made people smile involuntarily. Chapter 385. All right, then I'll return to my courtyard first. She stood up with a smile. After knowing that her grandfather's life was not in danger, she was able to relax. Right now, what she needed to do was protect the Feng family and find out who had kidnapped her grandfather, as well as why they had done it. She felt that this matter had happened suddenly, but it should not have happened without warning. Perhaps some clues had been left behind in her grandfather's room, and all of this would have to be revealed step by step. When she returned to her room, Ling Shuang had already asked someone to prepare hot water. She took off her shabby clothes, washed her face, and sat down in the bathtub. Soaking in the hot water, she felt her whole body relax. She normally did not need anyone to wait on her while she bathed, thus Ling Shuang stood guard outside and did not come in. At this moment, her body had relaxed, but her mind was thinking. Her grandfather's disappearance was indeed one disaster after another for the Feng Manor. If he was present, those people would be a bit more cautious. Now that he had disappeared, it gave them a great opportunity. Right now, they only lacked a reason to make a move against the Feng Manor. Her father's 8 Feng guards were all martial great masters. 8 martial great masters, in addition to her father and her grandfather. It was these people that allowed the Feng Manor to be as stable as Mount Tai in Yunyu City. After all, with this kind of power, even in other countries, it was definitely a family that no one dared to bully. Right now, the Feng Manor's masters appeared to be missing and one had fallen. The only ones left to fear were the 8 people. After soaking for about half an hour, she finally dried her hair and put on her clothes. Ling Shuang brought in a bowl of bird's nest porridge. She told him to stand guard in the courtyard and not see anyone. She then brought the bowl of bird's nest porridge into her space. Xiaohua. Feng Zhou approached him. Seeing that he had been unconscious for so long and now that he had woken up, he was not happy to see her. Instead, he was glaring at her. She could not help but raise an eyebrow and say with a smile, I thought that after not seeing me for so long, you would pounce at me upon seeing me come in. You don't know shame. He said angrily. His delicate little face was pink and tender, and his pair of black eyes were glaring at her with 3 parts anger and 7 parts shyness. He looked very cute. How am I shameless? She asked, amused. Look at you. You came in dressed like this. You didn't even pull your lapels together. Then. The little fellow was unable to continue. His little face was slightly red as he stared at her. However, he could not help but glance at her half-open lapel. That faintly discernible spring scenery. Although he was a divine beast, he was still a male at the very least. This woman actually came in so shamelessly. He felt embarrassed for her. Hearing this, Feng Zhou was startled. He lowered his head and glanced at himself. Then, he laughed out loud. You're just a little brat. You're a beast. You're not even a human. It doesn't matter if you see it. She winked and smiled, deliberately teasing him. Looking at the little fellow's angry little face, her heavy heart couldn't help but dissipate. Humph. The little fellow crossed her arms in front of her chest and turned her eyes away in embarrassment, ignoring her. All right, I'm just joking with you. Didn't I just take a shower and stay in my room? It doesn't matter if I'm wearing underwear. She sat down in front of Xiaohua and said, Look, what did I bring you? She waved the bird's nest porridge in her hand and couldn't stop smiling. Chapter 386. Hearing this, the corner of Feng Zhou's mouth twitched. Saliva, could he not say it in such a disgusting way? It was clearly a good nourishing thing, but in Xiaohua's mouth, it had become a little bird saliva. That's true, you're a bird yourself, so it's fine if you don't eat this, she said with a smile as she ate. Bird's nest was the best nourishing thing for women. It had a soft and smooth texture, with a faint fragrance of egg white. If he didn't eat it, she wouldn't waste it. Xiaohua, how's your body now? Have you recovered? She looked at him and asked as she ate. The little fellow turned around and glanced at her. His tender voice came out of his mouth, almost. As long as I recuperate for a few more days, my body will be able to fully recover. And, that's good. Then are you still going to recuperate in here for the next few days? Or do you want to go out? She finished eating in a few bites and put the bowl to the side. The little fellow glanced at her and said in a small voice, "Your house is a mess, I'm not going to go out and join in the fun. I want to recuperate in here." And, that's fine too. She nodded. She approved of him staying in the space to recuperate. After all, the spiritual energy here was abundant, so recuperating would naturally be twice the result with half the effort. However, seeing that his little face had been bright red since just now, she couldn't help but feel puzzled. Are you feeling unwell? Why is your little face so red? Stretch out your hand for me to see. This little brat, could it be that he didn't even know that he was feeling unwell? No need, I'm fine. He waved his hand as he retreated. Seeing his guilty expression, she raised her eyebrows in confusion. You're fine. If you're fine, why are you feeling guilty? How am I feeling guilty? You're not. Then who's the one who's avoiding my gaze? Who's the one who's panicking and shrinking to the side? And even hiding your hand behind your back? Say it. What did you do to make you feel guilty? She looked at him in amusement. Seeing him now, she felt that he was as lively as a human child. He knew how to feel guilty, how to be shy, and no longer forced himself to act like an adult. No. He turned his head away and refused to say anything. Fengjiu saw that its face was flushed red and it seemed to be full of energy. He thought to himself and swept his gaze around. When his gaze fell on a long box, he was slightly startled. He got up, walked towards the box, and opened it to take a look. You actually ate more than half 1,000-year-old ginseng. She raised her voice slightly and looked at Xiaohua, who had shrunk his little head in astonishment. She shook her head helplessly. Don't you know that a weak body can't take nourishment? What's more, it's 1,000-year-old ginseng. An ordinary person can survive with just one piece, but you've eaten more than half of it. It's good enough that you didn't have a nosebleed. He knew that he was in the wrong, so he stole a glance at her and whispered, then when I woke up, I was hungry and there was nothing else to eat. Fengjiu smiled helplessly. Alright, I won't nag you anymore. However, don't waste the medicinal properties of the 1,000-year-old ginseng. Hurry up and cultivate. She put away the remaining half of the ginseng and said, you can't eat the rest of it. Your body won't be able to take it. Xiao Fire Phoenix responded. He watched her take the bowl out of her space and then let out a sigh of relief. In the evening, when Fengjiu opened the door to his room, Ling Shuang, who was guarding outside, came forward to greet him. Master, Ahua said that the head of the household has prepared a meal in the main courtyard and asked you to come over to eat. Chapter 387. Perhaps it was because they were accustomed to the eldest young miss wearing white clothes at home, which was fresh and refined, but now that she had changed into a flame-like red dress, the people in the manor could not take their eyes off her. They knew that the eldest young miss was beautiful, or else she would not have been known as the #1 beauty. After being in the Feng manor for so long, it was not as if they had never seen her wear beautiful clothes before, but for some reason, this flame-like red dress on her body combined with her unique temperament made it impossible for them to find any words to describe her beauty. When the Feng guards and the others saw her slowly walk over, they could not hide the shock in their eyes. She was dressed in a red robe that was dazzling like fire as she slowly walked over. There was a trace of coldness between her brows, and when she raised her eyes, they overflowed with brilliance. Her entire person was emitting a languid and evil temperament from inside out. She was as seductive as fire, noble yet charming, and beautiful beyond compare. No matter how good their composure was, they could not help but stare blankly until that cold gaze swept over them. In an instant, they felt a chill rise from the soles of their feet to their hearts and into their minds. What shock, what beauty, all of it disappeared without a trace. All that remained was awkwardness. That was the person who would become their master, yet they were stunned. It was truly shameful. Eldest young miss. They quickly called out and steadied their minds. Fengjiu withdrew her gaze and walked into the courtyard. The people in the courtyard also stood up and called out, "Eldest young miss has come." She slightly smiled and looked at them. With a smile, she asked, "Have you all eaten?" We'll eat later. We're not hungry right now. Eldest young miss, quickly go in. Master is waiting for you inside. A middle-aged man said with a smile and gestured for her to go in. All right. She nodded in response and walked in. Xiaozhou, come, sit here. Feng Xiao waved his hand, indicating for her to sit next to him. There was no one else in the room except for Feng Xiao, Guan Shilin, and Leng Hua, who was waiting on the side. Guan Shilin poured the wine and said with a smile, "Foster father asked someone to prepare your favorite dishes. I also brought some spiritual wine. Xiaozhou, sit down and try this wine." Yes. She smiled as she walked to the table and sat down. Smelling the aroma of the food on the table, a happy smile appeared on her face. It's better to be home. I can't even find a place to eat these outside. Eat more if you like. You've been running outside recently. You've lost a lot of weight. Feng Xiao said and put a piece of meat in her bowl. Yes. She nodded and picked up her chopsticks to eat. At the table, the three of them only talked about their daily lives and did not talk about anything else. After they finished eating happily, they asked Leng Hua to take the dishes away. Only then did they sit down at the table and talk seriously. You don't know. That day, those two old things wanted to come to our Feng Manor to ask for old Bai. It was obvious that they wanted to rob our Feng Manor. If Yishuan hadn't stopped them at that time, they probably wouldn't have been able to clean up the mess. Speaking of what happened that day, Feng Xiao was clearly still a little angry. Their Feng family had protected the country of Glorious Sun for so many years. Now that they were no longer needed, what awaited them was such a cold treatment. It really made him angry. Were they the two people who ambushed you that time? Her eyes moved slightly as she looked at her father and asked. Chapter 388. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. Those two are nothing to be afraid of. Wait for me to think of a way to get rid of them. Hearing this, Feng Xiao and Guan Shilin were both stunned. Get rid of them. They are both at the peak of martial arts grandmaster. I'm afraid it won't be easy to kill them. They had thought of this idea before, but they didn't carry it out because they weren't completely confident. After all, those two were the monarch's men. If they couldn't kill them in one blow, they couldn't take the risk. Yes, I know. Father, don't worry. I won't do anything that I'm not confident of. She smiled and talked with them for a while to discuss some matters. When the sky gradually darkened, she left the room with Guan Shilin. Just as she was about to return to her room, she was called. Eldest Mississippi, Fengjiu stopped and looked at the 8 people and the 7 Phoenix guards standing behind them. What's the matter? The middle-aged men looked at each other. One of them turned around slightly and glanced at the people behind him. He smiled and said, "It's these people who want to recognize you as their master. However, he was interrupted before he could finish. There's no rush. She waved her hand and walked out of the courtyard with Guanxilin, leaving behind the people looking at each other. Seeing this, the 7 Phoenix guards were embarrassed and angry. They were already on their way to being recognized as their master, but she still wasn't willing to accept them. Did she look down on them? Did she think that they weren't worthy of being her subordinates? Thinking of this, the embarrassment and anger on their faces disappeared without a trace. Only worry and anxiety were left. Master, do you think eldest Miss will look down on us? Chi Kong asked anxiously. He wasn't sure himself. Humph. Now you're worried. One of them snorted heavily and glared at them with disappointment. If First Miss doesn't want you, then we'll just replace you and let her pick a few more from the Phoenix Guards. Aw. Are you serious? Hearing this, the few of them immediately cried. It wasn't easy for them to become team leaders. If they were replaced because of this, where would they cry to? What do you mean? Luo Yu yawned as he walked in. He had been sleeping ever since he came back, but he heard that his master had already returned. When he entered the courtyard, he saw that other than his master who had a smile on his face, the other martial uncles all had fierce expressions on their faces. When he looked at his brothers, he was immediately amused. Hey, what's wrong with you guys? Why are all of you crying? Ha, your uncle master and the others are scolding them, saying that they don't know what's good for them. Even now, they still haven't acknowledged a master. Great, now that they want to acknowledge a master, eldest Miss says that there's no hurry. Luo Yu's master smiled. Looking at his disciple, he said, once you've rested enough, stay by your master's side. Don't sleep too much. Master, don't worry. I know. He winked and smiled, then asked, what about master? She's not here. He just went back to his room. Then I'll go look for her tomorrow, he said with a smile. He glanced at Fan Lin and the others and said with a little pride, how about it? You guys didn't listen to me, so you guys got the short end of the stick, right? The corners of the 7 people's mouths twitched, and they glanced at him speechlessly. I won't talk too much with you guys. You guys better hurry up and think of a way to make master accept you guys. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have a chance. Chapter 389. Luo Yu let out a low chuckle and moved closer to them. Hee, let me tell you, it's a big loss that you didn't recognize me as your master. After that, he moved sideways to avoid them and came to his master. Master, this is a gift from your disciple. It's good stuff. He took out a small bottle from his chinkuan bag and handed it over with both hands. His master was startled and looked at the thing in his hand. This is. Could it be a medicine refined by Miss? Thinking about it, he had already taken it and opened it to smell it. This is a medicine, and it's a medicine that can improve your strength. Master's cultivation has been stuck for many years. As long as you take this medicine, you can break through in half a month. Hearing this, the 7 middle-aged men next to him were stunned. They looked enviously at Luo Yu's master holding the medicine and laughing happily. Then, they kicked their disciples. You bastards didn't recognize me as your master. Hiss. The men were unprepared and their butts were kicked. They quickly dodged, but they were still a little confused. Luo Yu's medicine couldn't have been given to him by Miss, could it? Where did Miss get the medicine? Suddenly, a thought faintly appeared, but they felt it was inconceivable and suppressed it. Luo Yu's master looked at the medicine in his hand and felt gratified, but he didn't keep it. Instead, he asked, you gave this to me, do you have it yourself? If there was only one bottle, he naturally couldn't accept it. After all, it should be given to him by Mississippi. I do. Master gave me a bottle. I said I asked for a bottle on behalf of Master. He chuckled and said, Master, martial uncles, I'll take my leave first. As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't wait for them to say anything and didn't give his brothers a chance to catch him and ask him questions. He ran away like a wisp of smoke. "Master, Marshal uncles, we're leaving too," the 7 men said and quickly rushed out, chasing after Luo Yu. They planned to catch him and interrogate him. "These bastards," sigh. They shook their heads and sighed. Looking at the medicine in Luo Yu's master's hand, they said enviously, "Luo Yu, this brat is so considerate." "Haha, that's right. How can my disciple not be good?" He laughed heartily and said to the few of them, "I'll have to trouble the few of you to guard this place. I'll go in and inform Master, and then try out the effects of this bottle of medicine. And, go ahead. Don't worry, we're here." The 7 nodded and smiled. "All right." He first entered the room and reported the situation to Feng Xiao. Only then did he return to the courtyard where they lived to cultivate. As for Feng Zhou, after returning to the courtyard, he gave some instructions to Ling Shuang, and then returned to his room to cultivate. Early the next morning, he pulled Lao Bai and went out. Because Luo Yu was in closed-door cultivation, the only ones left were Fan Lin's group of 7. After the 7 of them had asked Luo Yu last night, Luo Yu had revealed to them that their master was the ghost doctor. After hearing this news, the first thing they had done was to seek confirmation from their master. After receiving confirmation, they only felt incredulous. They had been unable to sleep the entire night because of this matter. Today, they had woken up early to keep watch, only to see her pulling Lao Bai out of the house. Where do you think Master went so early in the morning? Chapter 390. She didn't even bring her Ling Shuang. Is it really all right for her to go out by herself? Recently, there have been many pairs of eyes watching our Feng Manor. I'm really afraid that something will happen. How about we follow her and take a look? No. If we follow without permission, we'll be following Master. We can't do that. Fan Lin shook his head. After a slight pause, he said, "Let's go to Master's place. When Master goes out, there should be someone to report to them. I feel that there's no need to ask. They should feel that Master's strength is enough to protect himself, so they didn't let us follow. Moreover, didn't Luo Yu say that Master's skills are very good? Master's skills are extraordinary. Didn't you beat him into a pig's head?" Hearing this, the group was silent. After a long time, they walked towards the pavilion near the fake mountain. Feng Zhou left the manor. Dressed in red, she looked valiant and valiant. Her white horse and red clothes galloped through the streets early in the morning. It was very eye-catching. Especially since Feng Manor was currently in troubled times. The various powers in the city were watching her every move. Thus, they were puzzled by her action of going out for a walk early in the morning. Of course, it wasn't just one day that she went out for a walk. She went out for a few days in a row. Even Murong Yixian heard about it. However, when he thought of what she said that day, he suppressed the urge to go find her. Moreover, he was worried that her father's coma was caused by his father. If it really was like this, then it would be even more impossible between them. On the morning of the 3rd day, Feng Zhou went out with Old Bai as usual. The difference was that this time, even Qiu Qiu came along. However, Old Bai refused to let Qiu Qiu get on the horse. The little guy could only follow behind the horse and run with its short legs. Because of its round figure and cute appearance, it attracted the attention of many women and children as it passed through the streets. Is that a puppy? So cute. It's not a puppy. It looks like a kitten. Its fur is so long and it's as small as a ball. It runs so fast. It's really cute. Where did you buy it from? That's the Feng family's eldest young miss. Her things aren't something normal people can afford. From the looks of it, it seems to be a spiritual pet. Spiritual pets are extremely rare even in the brilliant Sun Empire. The sounds of discussion came from the street. Fengjiu turned his head slightly and saw a large group of children following behind Qiuqiu. He could not help but smile helplessly. After telling Lao Bai to slow down, he opened his arms and shouted at Qiuqiu, who was striding with his short legs, "Come up!" Roar! The little thing cried out and jumped into Fengjiu's arms with its short legs. Fengjiu couldn't help but smile. He held the little thing in his arms and stroked its head. When he looked back, he inadvertently saw a white figure standing by the window of a restaurant, staring at him with shining eyes. Seeing that it was Murong Yixian, she calmly retracted her gaze and squeezed Lao Bai's abdomen with her legs. With a shout, she quickly sped through the streets with fewer people and disappeared from his sight. On the second floor, Murong Yixian watched her figure disappear from his sight. Thinking of the smile just now, his heart was slightly relieved. Originally, he was worried that she would not be able to bear with so many things happening in the Feng family. However, it seemed that she was riding a horse to relieve her boredom. It was enough to show that she was fine. Chapter 391. In the less populated outskirts, Fengjiu slowed down and dismounted from her horse. She carried Qiuqiu and slowly walked towards a small stream not too far away. Lao Bai, on the other hand, was lying lazily on the grass. She washed her face by the stream and felt a cool breeze caress her face. It was refreshing and comfortable. She then sat down on the grass and took out a fruit from her sleeve to eat. She looked at the sky and the stream in front of her as if she was waiting for something. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, two gray figures approached silently. Their malicious gazes swept past the red figure before their gazes landed on Senior White, who was lying on the grass. To them, it was best to destroy something that they could not obtain. Even if this was a spiritual beast of a high level, since they could not obtain it, then no one else should think about obtaining it. What's more, this horse called Old White had even kicked them and ruined their plans. At that time, they had wanted to kill it. Tisk. Lao Bai, who was lying on the grass, straightened his body and looked in a certain direction. He then let out a tsk. Fengjiu, who was eating a fruit, played with Qiuqiu's fur in her arms. She did not even turn her head when she heard the commotion behind her. However, a calculating light flashed across her eyes. The elder, who was hiding in the shadows, took out an arrow from his sleeve and aimed it at Lao Bai, preparing to shoot it. They could not touch Fengjiu as the king still wanted to use her to form a marriage alliance with the Qingting kingdom. However, they could kill this horse. However, at this moment, a dangerous aura suddenly attacked, causing the two of them to shiver. They looked around vigilantly, and with a glance, they couldn't help but be shocked. Who are you? They did not know when, but two elders and two middle-aged men had appeared around them. The other party's powerful aura caused their hearts to tremble violently. Cold sweat also seeped out of their bodies. Faintly, a great sense of danger emerged in their hearts. Naturally, we're the people who will kill you. Fengjiu, who was dressed in red, walked over with a fruit in her mouth. She casually glanced at the pale-faced elder and curled the corners of her lips into a strange smile. I've been wandering around for 3 days before you took the bait. It wasn't easy. Hearing these words, the blood drained from their faces. Only then did they realize, you set us up. As soon as he said that, a light flashed in their minds. Feng Xiao didn't faint. That's right. Only Feng Xiao, who had not fainted, would tell them everything. This made them take precautions and let eldest Miss Feng plot against them to lure them in. However, what was going on with these 4 people? The strength of these 4 people was too strong. Their aura was not the Xian Qi of a martial ancestor. It was spiritual energy. Furthermore, he was afraid that his strength wasn't below foundation establishment. She was a young miss who had been raised in her boudoir, so where did she find these people? These people had such strength, how could they easily listen to her orders? One question after another appeared in his mind, but he couldn't find an answer. The only thing he knew was that he had fallen into her trap. Today, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to escape. As soon as this thought appeared in their minds, their hearts trembled, and they immediately turned around with the intention of fleeing. However, right when their figures moved, the 4 figures flashed with them as well. Trying to escape. Ha! Then run. If you can escape from us, you'll have to admit that you're capable. Chapter 392. The old man's pupils constricted as the aura of death enveloped him. His heart leapt into his throat. He wanted to scream, but it was as if his throat was tightly gripped by a pair of hands. He was unable to make a single sound. The golden core cultivator didn't touch him. Instead, he opened his hand and controlled his spiritual power. Then, the crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Kacha! The head was surrounded by a visible aura. Following the golden core cultivator's hand movement, brain matter burst out and splattered all over the ground. It was bloody and shocking. Awe. When the other old man saw this scene, his face turned deathly pale. He madly rushed forward, wanting to escape from their range. However, in just an instant, 3 figures had already blocked his path. The fear and shock that came from the depths of his heart made his legs tremble. His legs went soft, and with a plop, he knelt down. Don't kill me. The higher one's cultivation, the more one feared death. They had a longer lifespan than ordinary people, and they were stronger than ordinary cultivators. Their status was superior, and they could get whatever they wanted. He hadn't enjoyed enough of what strength had brought them. He didn't want to die. Eldest young Miss Fong, spare me. That he suddenly turned around and kowtowed to Fingzhou, who was slowly walking over. A dignified peak martial ancestor expert was crying and begging on the ground like a coward. It was not that he did not want to fight, but the opponent was too strong. As long as she exerted pressure, he would not even be able to move. How could he fight? If they knew that the Feng Manor was still hiding such a strong power, they would not have dared to have any ideas about Feng Shao. Now that he had gotten himself into trouble, his mind was completely blank. He could only think of how to continue living. However, knowing the Feng Manor's hidden power, how could she let him leave alive? Fengzhou did not get too close. She looked at the old man kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. Her gaze was cold and indifferent. Spare you? If I spare you, who will spare my Feng family? If it wasn't for my father's luck, he would have died in your hands. How can I spare you? Hearing this, the old man was shocked. Miss Feng, it wasn't us, it really wasn't us, we were just following Murongbo's orders, we didn't want to kill General Feng, we really didn't want to, we were forced. Before he could finish his words, Fengzhou had already turned around. At the same time, a pair of hands slapped the top of the old man's head. With a bang, the old man's entire body collapsed, ending his life. Return to Peach Blossom Cove first after cleaning up the corpses. Fengzhou mounted his horse and carried Qiuqiu towards the city. After a few days of horse riding, he lured them out and ended their lives. Tomorrow, he could finally sleep in. When the housekeeper saw that Fengzhou had returned so early today, he stepped forward and bowed. He smiled and said, "Eldest miss, you're back so early today." "Yes." She replied with a smile and placed the small pet in her arms on the ground. She then said to the housekeeper, "Help me prepare a good meal for old Bai and Qiuqiu." "Yes, eldest miss, do not worry. This old servant will go arrange it immediately." The housekeeper replied with a smile. After bowing, he left with old Bai and Qiuqiu. Seeing this, she went towards the main courtyard. Arriving in the courtyard, she saw that her father's old phone guards were standing guard, so she nodded to them and entered the room. Chapter 393. She walked over to the table and sat down. With a smile, she said, I'm here to tell father a piece of good news. Master, drink some tea. Leng Hua, who had been waiting on the side, poured a cup of tea for her. Good. She raised her eyes to look at him and nodded with a smile. What good news? Feng Xiao ate the medicinal porridge in the bowl. He wiped the corner of his mouth and moved the bowl away to look at her. She took a sip of the tea and said, those two people are dead. Feng Xiao was stunned for a moment. Her eyes lit up, and she lowered her voice in surprise. You mean those two old men? It was just taken care of. A smile appeared on her face. Her eyes curved into a harmless smile. This way, we don't have to worry about them coming again or secretly causing trouble. We can also break Murongbo's power, killing two birds with one stone. It was clearly an extremely dangerous matter, but she said it so casually. Hearing these words and seeing the expression on her face, Feng Xiao couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha, good. Hiss. In his joy, he forgot that his internal injuries hadn't healed yet. His laughter shook and his chest hurt slightly. Father, you're still wrapped in medicine. Fengjiu rolled his eyes. He was speechless at his son's unruly behavior. His own injuries hadn't healed yet, but he didn't know how to restrain his laughter. He patted his chest with one hand and took a deep breath before sighing. It would be good if your grandfather was also home. He would be very happy to hear this news. Father, don't worry. At least no news is good news. She softly comforted him. After thinking for a bit, she said, That's right, Father, I want to go to grandfather's room to take a look. I think grandfather might know who the person who kidnapped grandfather is. Perhaps he might have some clues. Feng Xiao nodded and said, if you want to go, then go. My body hasn't recovered yet, so I can only leave everything to you to handle. Fortunately, her methods of handling matters were swift and decisive. Even if the Fu was like this, she could still stabilize the Fu both inside and outside, which comforted him greatly. I'll take care of the matters in the manor. Father, you don't have to worry. Just focus on recuperating. She smiled and looked at Leng Hua, asking, Do you still have the ointment I made? If you don't have any more, go over to my place and get some more. Some of them haven't been used up yet. Well, then I'll go back to my room first. After she said that, she stood up and walked out. At the same time, in the palace. Monarch, bad news, bad news. An old man entered the palace in a hurry. Due to his panic, he almost tripped over the door sill. Why are you so flustered? Murongbo asked slowly with a dignified voice. He was holding a cup of tea and drinking it. On his left and right, two beautiful palace maids were kneeling and massaging his legs. Behind him, there were two people fanning him. It could be said that he was very relaxed. The Feng Manor's elder had disappeared and Feng Xiao was unconscious. To him, this was extremely good news. Although the Feng Manor had not collapsed, it was not much of a threat to him. Even if he wanted to destroy the Feng Manor, it would only be a matter of moving his mouth. Chapter 394. King, those two martial great masters' longevity lamps have been extinguished. When the old man's panicked voice fell, Murongbo's hand trembled and the teacup in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. Murongbo suddenly stood up and the two maidservants were so shocked that they fell to the ground. What did you say? Whose longevity lamps have been extinguished? His dignified voice was filled with unconcealable shock and astonishment. If one listened carefully, one could even hear a trace of trembling. Those were two martial great master pinnacle experts. How could the two most powerful people by his side have suddenly died? In the country of Glorious Sun, who would have the ability to kill two peak martial arts grandmasters without a sound? One must know that when they had wanted to assassinate Feng Xiao, even if they had made ample preparations, it had caused quite a commotion. Now, 2 martial great master pinnacle experts had died. It's those 2. The old man hadn't even finished speaking when he saw Murongbo walking out in large strides, heading towards the lantern house where the longevity lanterns were lit. The longevity lamp was linked to the life of the person who lit it. If that person died, the lamp would naturally be extinguished in the wind. This was also to ensure that if someone went out and didn't return for many years, or if someone went into seclusion and didn't come out for many years, they would know whether that person was dead or alive. When Murongbo arrived at the lantern tower and saw that the longevity lamps of the 2 martial great master pinnacle experts had been extinguished, his entire body swayed and he staggered a few steps. His face was filled with disbelief. How could they have died? Who did it? Who killed them? His heart was pained that 2 of his most powerful martial great master pinnacle experts had died. That was equivalent to breaking his left and right hands. Losing these 2 people was like a fierce tiger losing its sharp claws. How could he not be pained? Investigate. Give me the order to investigate. He shouted sternly and strode out. 2 martial great masters had died. It was impossible for them to have died without a sound. He wanted to know who had killed them. The news of the 2 martial great masters' deaths had not spread. It had been suppressed by Murongbo. After Murong Yixien returned to the manor, not long after he entered his study, a shadow guard quietly entered his study and told him the news from the palace, then quietly left. The 2 elders at the peak of the martial ancestor realm had been killed. Murong Yixien was slightly stunned. Who in Yunhua City could kill those 2 without anyone noticing? Furthermore, why were those 2 the ones who died? His heart trembled slightly. He did not know why, but when he heard that the 2 had been killed, the first thing he thought of was the Feng Manor. Could it be that the 8 martial great masters from the Feng Manor had killed those 2 people? Looking at the entire Yunhua City, if it was not the 8 martial grand masters from the Feng Manor, then it could be a strong practitioner from another country. However, a strong practitioner from another country would not come from the Yu country to kill the 2 people if they had no enmity with them. Thus, this hypothesis did not make sense. Feng Manor, could it really have been done by them? After dealing with those 2 people, Fengjiu focused on treating his father's internal injuries. He also concocted some medicine for him to take. It could be said that with the help of various spiritual medicines and treatment, Feng Xiao's injuries recovered extremely quickly. However, the peaceful days had only lasted for a few days before they were broken. Early in the morning, a flying boat stopped at the imperial palace's gates. It attracted countless people's curiosity and discussion. Murongbo, who had heard the news, also rushed out to welcome them. When he saw the luxurious man who walked down from the flying boat, he quickly went forward and respectfully asked about him. Chapter 395. Enchanting, who was wearing a luxurious brocade robe, stood with his hands behind his back. He glanced at Murongbo in front of him and spoke in a low voice filled with the aura of a ruler. You are the ruler of the glorious Sun country, Murongbo? That is this humble one. He quickly replied. In front of him, he did not dare call himself this ruler. He could only lower himself and call himself that. After all, His Highness the Crown Prince of a 6th-tier country was much more honorable than him. In front of him, even if he was the ruler of a country, he was nothing. Moreover, he secretly glanced at the 8 people behind him, and his heart trembled. Those 8 people were all cultivators, and their strength was unfathomable. He had only glanced at them, but he felt a wave of pressure, causing cold sweat to appear on his forehead. Sure enough, there was a huge difference between cultivators and Xian martial artists. Thinking of this, he quickly reined in his thoughts and said, Your Highness the Crown Prince has come from afar. Please enter the palace to rest first. In the evening, Murongbo will prepare a banquet to welcome Your Highness the Crown Prince. Enchanting slightly nodded and followed Murongbo into the palace's gates. As for the luxurious flying boat behind him, it was not put away. Instead, it was openly placed in front of the palace's gates, allowing people to look at it. Entering the palace's inner courtyard, Murongbo personally brought him to a palace that had been prepared. He had him live in it and said, "I knew that Your Highness the Crown Prince would be coming in a few days, so I ordered people to prepare the palace ahead of time. This will allow Your Highness the Crown Prince to live comfortably." Enchanting casually glanced at the palace but did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Murongbo and asked, "This Highness sent people to the Feng Manor's eldest young miss to ask for her hand in marriage. How did it go?" Hearing this, Murongbo quickly said, "When Your Highness sent people over, I already told the Feng Manor's people." At that time, Feng Shao, an eldest young miss, did not agree, but recently, many things have happened in the Feng family. Feng Shao was assassinated and fell into a coma. Old Master Feng has also disappeared. Now, the Feng Manor only has eldest young miss supporting it. It is already on the verge of collapse. For eldest young Miss Feng to be able to obtain Your Highness the Crown Prince's favor at this time, she should be very grateful. I will prepare a banquet tonight and have people invite her into the palace to accompany Your Highness the Crown Prince. Oh. There was actually such a thing. Thinking of how that beautiful girl was facing this sort of situation and was supporting an entire family with her weak shoulders, he could not help but feel his heart tremble. Thus, he looked at Murongbo and asked in a deep voice, "Have you found out who did it?" Murongbo wiped away his cold sweat and said, "No, we still don't know who did it, but my guess is that it should be someone from another country. Feng Shao is a general in Yaori and already has quite a few enemies. The Feng Manor's eldest young miss, Feng Qinggu, will be this Highness woman. You must investigate her family situation thoroughly." Yes, of course. He quickly agreed, his heart feeling weak. Go prepare for the banquet. There is no need for too many other people. Just call her over for this Highness. He waved his hand, indicating for him to leave. Yes, then I'll take my leave. He bowed, then turned and left. After Murongbo left, a middle-aged man wearing black clothes stepped forward and asked, "Master, do you want this subordinate to investigate the Feng Manor?" That time, because he had been careless, he and his master had fallen for that girl's trick without even making a move. He had always been brooding over this.